Go ahead.
Well, I believe I am live. I hope so. I always get kind of tied up with all this technology. I am, and I'm happy to say I'm not a dinosaur. I am not a
Not at
dinosaur.
all. Not at all.
I'm getting informed with the thing. I'm watching to see when it comes up on YouTube. But until it does, welcome to all of the loyal opposition. It is so good to see you again tonight. And we are so grateful for all of you that are joining us from whatever part of the world, the Barbadian diaspora. And my goodness, I didn't know Barbadians were in so many places of the world. I discovered actually, Marcia, that there was a Barbados rum shop in Paris. And I didn't know. It was just unbelievable. Myself and my brother and his fiancee at the time in 1997, we were outside of the Eiffel Tower, and just off the street, we heard this accent. And you knew it was a Bajan. And there was the rum shop. It was just amazing. So Barbadians are everywhere. So we just want to say welcome to all of you that are joining us tonight. There's 57 so far. And we're going to ask you, please, as you join or as you comment, if you would let us know if you're not in Barbados, let us know where you're joining us from. If you're joining us from Zimbabwe, or you're joining us from Nigeria, or you're joining us from Europe and England, if you're joining us from Ireland, New York, Toronto, Montreal, Miami, Atlanta, wherever you're joining us from, if you're not joining us from Barbados, please let us know where you're joining us from. Alfred Benjamin, yes, sir. Good night, and it's good. You said you're back in New York City from beautiful Barbados and locked on. Well, it was nice to have you home. I'm not sure if I actually got to shake your hand or see you, but it doesn't matter. It's fine. Angela Cox, good evening. Mystic Angel, Bajan, Maggie. It is so good to have all of you joining. Kamhar, good evening to you as well. Let me just slide back up here and see all of these loyal people. My goodness, they're on every time. Taki Bowen. And of course, Remy M 6070, always there and sharing. And listen, folks, don't forget if you're viewing us on YouTube to give us that thumbs up. Okay, give us that thumbs up. It goes a long way toward helping us to be a little more, our profile to be a little higher in YouTube. All right. And of course, there's the ravishing Marcia Weeks. So good to have you on the show with us tonight, Marcia. Of course, it's your show. And I'm telling you, it's good to have you on. Well, it's actually a real honor and a pleasure of mine to co-host this show with you on Monday nights. I consider it a real honor. You're such a fighter, and you're such an example and of tenacity. And my goodness, I know you're going to want to say something about that show last night.
Oh my
So I'm just
word.
going to step away because it was that movie, that documentary was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Dr. Ferdinand, well, good night to you and
And
good
good
night
night to
to
you too.
everybody who's joined. I'm seeing people are on Beige and Maggie from Maryland, and people are on Angela Cox, actually. One of our big supporters. It's good to see you, Angela Cox from Florida. And and Sir Alfred Benjamin from New York, all these wonderful people, Nigel Newton, who I saw last night. Nigel was there
Yes, we
last
saw
night,
Nigel last night. It
and
was really nice to see him.
I want to say to everybody, thank you so much. I want to say thanks to the loyal opposition, thanks to the opposition, thanks to Barbadians, both within Barbados and outside of Barbados. The
That's right.
diaspora,
That's right.
you came through. Everybody put monies together and made this Errol Barrow celebration a success.
Wow.
It
Wow.
was the
Wonderful.
people, because if it
Yes.
wasn't for them, we couldn't pay for everything. Listen, these are the things that we had. For those who were not there, we had a jumping tent for the children. I love that. I love to know that the children are happy and that they're taken care of. We had
Yes.
a jumping tent for the children. We had Paw Patrol was there.
Yes,
Marshall
I saw
Paw
Paw
Patrol
Patrol.
was
Ah,
in the house taking pictures with the children. So we had a character, there from Paw Patrol, Marshall, and popcorn machine and vendors were selling. We didn't invite them; they just came and just were selling. And we had the dancers there from Praise Academy. They did a fantastic job. Praise Academy always so
oh, you're
wonderful,
brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
and
And the
and
young people. Oh,
the
wow.
young people. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
and I want to, before I even go on to talk about the content of the program, I want to thank everybody for their donations. And
Yes,
we're still
yes.
tallying, but I know that when I came on here, Pastor Dr. Ferdinand, I said that we could advertise on Starcom. And I gave,
Yes.
I said how much it was. We realized early clock it was taking us a little while to make that amount. And so we decided to go to use social media. And we were very happy with the turnout last night. Were you happy with the
Yes.
turnout, Dr.
Yes, I
Ferdinand?
was. I was. And you know what? Impressed me a lot was it seemed to be like a really family event because you could see the adults there and the children there. And that was a real blessing to me, because and the young people. Don't let me leave the young people out. I don't know if you looked around, Marcia, but along with the Praise Academy dancers and the children, there were a lot of young people that were gathered there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I know you're going to touch on the young people that spoke, so I'm not even going
Yeah,
to
yeah.
bother to go there.
No, no,
You
no.
know,
But you can always touch on that. But I wanted to
yeah,
just say to everybody, thank you, because it is
yes,
because of you that we were able to have all the amenities out there. First of all, to pay for Independence Square, because while it is government owned, we have to pay to use it, so for the upkeep and so on. And I don't have a problem
yeah,
with
yeah,
that. We had to pay for the jumping tent for the children. We had to get the stuff for the popcorn machine. All of the everything that you saw out there cost money. The scaffolding for the screen onto the scaffolding, all of that, it's a production, and so it costs money. And I want to say thanks to everybody, and I should be able to tell you by Wednesday exactly how much money we collected, because we were having some problems today with Republic Bank. I don't know if anybody has had that challenge, and so it was difficult to get the final amount. But so far, I believe that when by tomorrow, when we are able to get on, we should be able to cover all of our expenses. And I want to thank you all that we were able to do that. We did not do the ads that we were looking for, to do for Starcom. That would have been too expensive, so we kind of cut the budget a bit, Dr. Purdy, and we did a social media, because we know things are hard for people, and we tested that out, and we believe that it's working, because I think that crowd that we had there yesterday was probably the biggest crowd. Yeah. So we just want to thank God for that. Now we had those young men who were speaking there. You want to talk about that, please? Talk
Well,
about
I tell you, I was so blessed to listen to the visionary young people speak. Sometimes you think that when you're engaging young people, all they're going to talk about is what's happening now, and like some old talk or something. But I sat and listened to some young men chart a course of what they would like to see happen in their country, not from a personal, selfish perspective, but on
Mm-hmm.
a national level, what they would like to see happen in the land, in the nation, for the young people, for the citizens of the country. And I was really, really blessed to know that in the future, the hands of the country, the country is going to be in good hands as we go forward. There are a lot of young people that are of great value. And Marcia, one of the police officers that was there, I was chatting with him, and he said to me that he wished that the media would highlight things like what he saw last night more often, because he said
The
the only
police said that.
thing,
The
yeah,
police said that to you.
yes, he said that to me. He said the only thing we see coming into the media is all the bad things the young people do. He said, but look at this. This is absolutely brilliant. This is absolutely fantastic. And he wished that the media would carry more of those kind of things and report more on them, because he was saying that the majority of young people are not bad. They're really, really good. And I appreciated it, and what is the word that they use in political circles? I endorse that message.
Yes.
I endorse that very, very much, very, very, very
Yes,
much.
yep. And I see Mr. Franklin there. He's smiling. I don't know if he's
Oh,
ready yet to come in. Yes.
he
But
looks like we're going to have some trouble tonight when he smiles like that. I
no,
tell
but
you.
I know he's smiling because of the young
Yeah.
people. I think
Yes,
Yes,
I'm
yeah,
able to
you're
read. I'm
definitely.
able to read Mr. Franklin a bit better these days. Now it's over 6 months we've been relating, and I saw once you see that smile, and he's like me. He loves to connect with the future, with the present. We say young people that they're the future Barbados. They are the
they
present.
are the present.
According
Yes,
to
yes,
Nigel Newton, they
yes.
are present. And were they present, Mr. Franklin? Were they present?
Yes, I can endorse that too. But before I endorse anything, I saw one of the old fellas dancing. Nigel was there dancing. Man, you didn't see him. I was there. He said, look, Nigel was there, man.
Is that during one of those songs, that they had all the people in front? I was so tempted, but I
uh,
said no, they wouldn't
he
believe a
was standing.
reverend
He
would
was
do
he
that.
was standing behind us, and I looked back. I saw Nigel there
Ah,
dancing. I said, "Oh, good." So I said, "Well, I
yes,
wish I could do it."
yes,
But the bad knee. I got the bad. But you know, we had a lot of impressive young people. We saw the others before,
yes.
but one people tend to ignore, people don't tend to see, was the MC. He was brilliant.
Oh
Yeah,
yes,
he was
yes.
brilliant. And you can see how he kept it going. Even when we had a little hiccup with somebody wasn't there, and
Yeah.
he moved on. I was thoroughly impressed. I wanted to tell him, but he left before I got the opportunity to say that to him. So I'm hoping that he's hearing, or somebody can tell him. But I was quite impressed by him. And then when
Yes.
he said, but the year he was born, I got my grandchildren almost as old as him, and yeah, So I was quite impressed by him. I said, well, look,
Yes.
he can do it, and he was just there, man. I was enjoying him. I said, look, we got a lot of talent around this place, and the thing is, the talent, as the policeman told you, isn't being showcased. When you got troubles, you
Yes.
see the people, you
Yes.
see them in their little manacles and stuff, walking up the court step and thing, but and front page and all. But you ain't seeing these young people, and we
Yes.
got more of these
Yes.
young people than bad ones.
We
But
do. We
somehow,
do. We
somehow,
do.
somehow, good news don't sell, and I think that is the problem, because we had some good news last night. We had those three young men. They're becoming part of us now, and then this young fella. I said, well, look, when I saw him there, so the hair got on the little thing, the young people thing. I don't know. Mine get that color naturally.
But you don't
You
you
know.
don't have enough. You don't have enough to put into that style.
No.
And
See,
of course,
look.
I should be the last person to talk
No, but no,
because
no. You,
it's
you,
only
you
the
don't know why.
headphones that are,
You,
are mine.
you know why? Because that
Uh,
would make it look too big. You know, so I have to keep the
Oh,
hair
dear
cut the
me.
hair down, you know, so that you wouldn't see the real extent of the thing. So a big head of hair now it would look like a clown, man. So don't worry.
Oh,
Yeah,
dear me. Oh,
Marcia,
dear me.
it was a wonderful show last night, and I tell you,
Yes, it was.
I
It
now listen. The
was.
third time I watched the Barrow thing, and you know, like sometimes when for me, it's like Star Trek. I watch Star Trek all the time, and I've seen these Star Trek movies over and over and over, and I still watch them again. Well, I think that this is what your documentary has been doing to me. It's like my Star Trek movies. I want to go back at it again and again and again. You know, even though I was there saying, "Oh, trying to say the dialogue," you know, as they were going on. I enjoyed it. Marcy, it was a wonderful show. Despite any detractors that we have, we know it was
Yeah.
good. You know,
You
Well,
know,
you see,
you can ignore them, but one of the things that really impressed me, Marcia, I will tell you, is the cadre of people that you got to interview and to showcase that document. It was stunning. I mean, top quality people, some of the most outstanding citizens of Barbados that you were able to get and
look at
talk with.
the moderator, you know. You
The
know?
moderator, Eric
Yeah,
Holder, former Attorney General of the United States of America. I don't know how you pull that one off. You can hardly even get close to a member of government in the United States.
but can I
Far
tell
less.
you? Can I tell
Wow.
you? And this is how I got Eric Holder, the former U.S. Attorney General. I
Yes.
think I told it on the show already, and I'll just give you a brief synopsis of the story. I was home praying about it because I was so moved. I wasn't. I didn't just become passionate about Barbados. That movie has been made 9 years ago. For those who are
Hmm.
saying, "Oh, she's just jumping on a bandwagon and to get back to Jamaica and all that nonsense," this movie was made in 2016, and so I was really, really, just very passionate about Barbados, and I was praying about it. And I went online and started to search for Eric Holder because I felt I wanted somebody that the international world would recognize, and so that the film would be, doors would be open for the film in America and in the UK, etc. And I went online, Mr. Franklin, and saw his number. I saw a number, and I called the number. It was in Washington, and I left a message because I didn't hear anybody, and I left a message, and told him who I was and what I wanted to do, and I knew that he had Barbadian connections, and because his I think his grandparents were Barbadians from St.
Yes.
Joseph, and
Yes.
so I and and I and what I want to say to people is that when I started this journey, Mr. Franklin, and Dr. Ferdinand, I asked the then government to help me to get to Eric Holder, and it was when they were not moving one foot to help me, that I did it on my own. And this is whatever I'm talking about is what I live. When I say to us that we need to get up and we can do things, is what I live. And I found this number for myself after I cussed the government, of course. Then
of
I
course.
found the number. I tell you the truth, I told them off. And so, that was a DLP, and I told them off. I went and I searched for the number online, and I found the number, and I called and left a message. And a few days later, I was in my office at Praise Academy, and I saw my assistant running, 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 running to me, knocking on the door. The Eric Holder is office is on the line. Do you know anything about this? I said, Eric Holder, what do you mean? She said, the former Attorney General. I'm like, really? I said, I called and I left a message. I didn't expect that they were going to answer. And I said, all right, send over the call. And I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do now, right? And so I always, in acting, I would tell them, to get into character. I tell him, I went on the phone, and I took that phone and I started speaking in the best English I could find. And started to talk as though the government is backing this, and the government of Barbados is doing a film, and the Ministry of Culture, and I was throwing names left, right, and center on that phone, and had nothing. I was speaking in faith or whatever else you want to think. And I was just talking to them. I'm like, we had a moment. We're not going to get, this is not going to go. This is a God moment. And they said, okay,
Yes.
tell you what, send us an email and with all everything from the government. And I'm like, from the government? Uh, and and I got up and I called Miss Minister of Culture. I called until I got him. Because and he came on. I said to Minister, you've got to do this because I found Eric Cole. They said, well, we had written this and we had done this. I said, oh, I got him, right? And he needs you to send a letter to say what I am saying is true. He said, so what did you tell him? I said, this is what I told him, right? That the government is helping me with this film, blah blah blah. And so Minister got the permanent secretary and everybody, and they backed me up and wrote the letter, and we sent it off to former Attorney General, and in a couple of days they sent back and said yes, they signed on to the film, and we were ready to do the film. And I went up. We were trying to fly him here, but it was too much to fly because he needed, it's either you get a jet for him. He says when he's coming to Barbados, he's normally in a jet. And I'm like, what? I can't do that. So then I had to fly the crew to Washington. And we went to Washington and did the movie and filming there, lots of security. And then even the night before, we didn't know whether we would have been allowed to film him, because we needed all of that insurance, and he took care of everything so that we could film. And the rest is history. So I had to give you that little story and the
Well,
borrow.
I really appreciate it, but Maxine is reminding you, and maybe you can give him a hail out because, as you know, this show is going on YouTube. His birthday is January the 21st,
Yes, yes. So
which was just yesterday, which is the
yesterday,
same birthday as my first
this
grandchild.
yes, Errol Barrow. Congratulations
Ah.
on that too. And Errol Barrow, his birthday. They had the birthday. And Mr. Franklin, I had no idea. It was, when I found out. I found out the day we were filming Eric Holder, and I was a nervous wreck. I was this is this is America, and I'm here, all the security. I was so intimidated. I tell it, I'm being honest. I was I felt like I was gonna wet myself. And I was up and down, trying to look busy, but I was so nervous. And he was in the and then he called me in the makeup, and he was saying, I don't want to read this, I don't want to say this, my lawyers this, my that. And I'm like, oh boy. And then and then he called me, and he said, is this correct here? I said, what? He said, Mr. Barrow was born on January 21st. And I said, yes. He said, did you know that that's my birthday? I said, no, I didn't
Wow,
know that.
wow.
And do you know that at that moment, it's when all the fear went, all the nervousness went there at that time, because I knew at that moment that this was God inspired. And as someone,
Yes,
Reverend, as a believer,
yes.
I remembered how I was praying and fasting about it, and how it happened. And now this is the man's birthday, and he just was looking at me, and I was looking at him, and he knew. And I said to him, I said, Mr. Holder, I believe that this is destiny, something like that. I said to him, I said, you are the person to do this. And he said, Mrs. Weeks, my grandparents would be very proud of what I'm doing today, and I'm very happy that I'm doing this. And the whole mood, my mood changed, not his, I know for sure. I felt more confident. and so that I could actually direct the whole proceeding. And everything went well. We finished on time and had a lovely luncheon afterwards, and it was beautiful. So I just want to, I didn't come to talk all about that.
But
I
it's
hope.
but it's great. It's great to, because I know the show, and it's the reason why some people really should keep their mouths shut. I know the documentary was done some years ago when I saw the dean Harold Critchlow speaking, and some actual persons that have passed away from the nation. Oh dear me, Harold Hoyt.
Yes,
I knew that it had been done some years before, and nothing,
yes,
right now kind of thing. And as Marcia, there are so many aspects to a person's life, and when you're celebrating a person, you don't highlight the negatives about them. It's like a funeral, not that the documentary is like a funeral, but when you attend a funeral and they're giving um, the speech to do with the person, they don't highlight all the bad things that people do. They highlight the good things that the person has done, and the jokes, the laughter that they've made. And so I was really appreciative of the fact that the documentary's focus was more positive, and we need more positive components in our country today. We really, really do. And so, we really want to commend you for tremendous. It was tremendous. I
I,
sat.
I hear you say that, Dr. Ferdinand, but if you look at it, there were moments there that we talked about when Barrow became arrogant and Barrow
Oh yeah,
became,
oh yeah, oh yeah. You
yeah,
you
and
dropped
so
in,
we talked
yeah,
about those issues. Barrow had,
a
he had
sharp tongue, and
a sharp
that
tongue,
kind of
and
thing. Yeah,
yeah, and the fact that he was dating Nina Simone, which the
yeah. And
average
I
Barbadian don't know, and people,
incidentally, I
yes,
I knew his last girlfriend, Janine Chipolato, because she was the first person to bring a Triumph 2.5 PI to the island when my dad had a Triumph 2000. I don't know if you remember those days, Caswell, with the Rover 2000s and the Rover 3.5 liters that the police had and all of that. But Janine Chipolato was the first person to bring this high performance Triumph into the country. And she used to come to Harrison College on a regular basis. And I used to wave her down at the gate to look at the car. That's what I wanted to do. So I must say that there was a lot of personal connections that I had in the movie with the people that were there. I sold Harold Hoyt his BMW 328 that he had. And it was very, very personal for me with a number of the persons in the documentary,
yeah.
and so it was
But
well done, well
the
done.
funny thing, Mr. Franklin, I remember people very high up in the DLP said to me, but why did you have to talk about Nina Simone? Why you had to talk about those negatives? And then you have other people on the other side. Well, you only talk about the positives of the man. And so you can't please everybody.
No,
And
no.
the funny and it would have been so lovely to have had the prime minister, this prime minister in the film at the time, and so we had set up at least two interviews with the overseas film crew. And you know how these things are, use thousands of dollars and set it up, and there was a no show by this prime minister of Barbados, refused to be part of this film, refused to give any word on camera on about Mr. Barrow. I can tell you, and what I'm saying, it's not a lie, I'm telling you truth.
Mhm.
And you can accept that or not, it is a fact.
But it is consistent with her behavior. She would not want to do anything to highlight him because, as you see right now, she is doing everything possible to make sure he's not seeing in any light at all, good or bad. She just
Mhm.
wants him gone. So if you had put her up there to speak on Barrow, you were not going to let her vilify him. So she would have to speak good things, and she didn't want to do that. And so this is consistent with her behavior. It is something that just started then. I thought it was like something that, but it is an ongoing bad
No,
behavior that she
no,
has.
Mr. Franklin, we scheduled twice with the film crew. and she refused. We also scheduled with her father. I have all the documentation. It's there. And they set the time and they never came. And we thought it was, we said, okay, but you're still pursuing them. And so we went after them. I remember the then Minister of Culture picking up the phone. And when I told him what happened, and he called her on the phone, the Prime Minister, Mayor Motley, on the phone, and to say, well, this is something that is national, that has been done about Mr. Barrow, and she refused to be part of it. And I have to say, she refused because she never showed up, even though I was told that they were going to. I was also, I have to say, Mr. Franklin and Dr. Ferdinand, that I will have to say that I was kind of threatened by some of the handlers. That's how I'll put it, within the party, because it would have been 2 years before the elections, and I was told that I need to understand that the film I am making was a political film, and that I would be branded. I was told that in my office. I was told that if I knew what was good for me, this is what I was told. I could call the person name right now who told me this. That was a handler in that camp. If you understand what I mean,
Yeah,
if you
I sure do.
and I was told, do not touch that film. The second thing I was told was that you will not get any money from the private sector to do this film. That's what they told me. They said that they can guarantee me that nobody is going to give me any money to do this film. Obviously, they are wrong. They were wrong because the film was completed. The film was completed. 250,000 Barbados dollars. It was completed, right? And what am I? I'm sharing all of this to inspire all of us that we do not need to sit down and wait on government. So when you hear me come on here and I speak like this, I know what I'm talking about. I've lived it. I've lived it, and I'm saying to all of us, I'm still learning and growing. I meet Caswell and I see the things that he does, and I'm like, oh my God, how does he do that? How does he do that? The way he cares to people, and what I learn and I live and I see the reverend, how the reverend is using his Christianity in a positive way. As a reverend, that speaks to me, and so my story is one to inspire us that we can get it done. We can get it done, and we do not need to wait on government to get things done. That's why I would say all the time, we don't have to keep talking, 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 talking. What can we do? You would hear me say that all the time. What are the practical things that you can do? They told me you would not this move. You better not do this movie. They told me you would be blacklisted and branded, and that is what has happened to me. If you do this movie, they told me you will not get any money from the private sector to do this movie. I went into such problems with even the DLP. I had to threaten them, not physically threatened, but I got really mad with the DLP about this movie. So it is not now I'm cussing governments.
No, Marcia, the thing about it is that you would think that people would, I mean, when you look at where Barbados used to be, and what Errol Walton Barrow did for the country through his life in politics, you would think that we would want to celebrate that because it carried Barbados to an international platform of recognition. That today we talk about how the country punches above its weight. That did not come from the current prime minister. That did not come from the one that preceded her, or the one that preceded him, or the one that preceded him, or the one that preceded him. That came because Mr. Barrow, when he stood in the United Nations, made it clear what Barbados's position was. And I don't know if in there was a portion in the documentary where the United States came in and spoke to him concerning the vote in agreement with the United States of America for Israel, and the response was, we didn't vote for your thing. We voted because, as an independent country, that's what we chose to do and pay our dues. Nobody joins the club and doesn't expect to pay their own dues. So it was like a slap in the face of the United States. And so you get this little 166 square mile country with this little black guy that is representing who? You know, I've been in some countries and in some offices, Marcia, and Barbados is not even on their map. You can't find it. You know, when I was first introduced to BMW in 1993, and I went to the boardroom of the BMW building in Munich, Germany, and I started to talk about Barbados, the director, one of the directors, looked at me and said, "And where is Barbados again?" And I said, "Oh, sir," because I saw the global map in the on the wall, and I got up all excited to go and show him Barbados. And when I got to the map, there was no Barbados there. And so I took out my pen and I put a little dot, 13.1, 59.1, and I said, "Sir, that's Barbados." So you have this country that hardly people knew about punching above its weight. And that didn't come from our current leadership. That came from Mr. Barrow. And you have to
Yep.
give Jack his jacket.
For the I had a similar experience. You know, I went to CUNA Management School and the University of Wisconsin to do a diploma in credit union management. So it was done in over three summers. So the first summer we went up there, I was asked the question, where's Barbados, if it's on the west coast of Jamaica or if it is thing in Montego
Yes,
Bay and all kind of
yes,
stuff.
yes.
Nobody, most of the people didn't even know. The course was done in New Orleans. Nobody up there knew what Barbados was.
Yeah.
So the following year, because I had to go up every year, I took a transparency with the map of the Caribbean on it, and they had to give a presentation, an hour, and so I took my first few minutes of that hour to put my transparency up, and I said, I started by saying Jamaica, and they pointed at Jamaica, and then they said 1,313 miles down south is Barbados, and people were like, oh, you know, it shocked them. They didn't realize that Barbados was not a parish in Jamaica or anything like that. But as you said, she wrong about best no jumping, but then she's flying with somebody else's wings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you know,
And
and the
if
thing,
I have a similar story that
yeah,
and I think that it's important that people understand, you know, get a real understanding of and put things in context, because we see her flying all over the place and say, oh, she's putting Barbados on the map. I remember that when we went to Cannes Film Festival, we were chosen to go to Cannes Film Festival. This is the largest film festival in the world, in the south of France. When I applied, there was no I couldn't apply as a Barbadian because there was no provision for that. You know, we had to write. We had to write with minister. I went and I told the minister of culture, and I said, what I'm gonna do, I have to apply as a Jamaican. Okay. And then it was after I applied as a Jamaican, then we wrote to them, and they now included Barbados in the whole process. You know, and wherever I go, where all the film, when my husband when they came to France, I went first. You know, and then they came like a couple of days later, and everywhere I walked, they were calling me Miss Barbados. This you had about you had thousands of people from all different countries, and people were waving to me, calling me Miss Barbados, because I was just pushing Barbados wherever I went in the south of France at this festival. That this is a black girl. You know, I got even the people from this. I can't remember to film me, and I go and beg them. I saw them camping up to film some big stars that they were waiting on. I can't remember the name of the star now. You can see his face in front of me, and they were camping out to wait. You know, the waits to
yeah,
sitting
yeah,
on
yeah.
the couch, and it was HBO. I saw them, and I told them, I said, I'm from Barbados, you know. And they were sitting. I sat down on the ground with them too, Mr. Franklin, and I said to them, listen, I'm here by myself, but I'm having such a wonderful time. And I would like my country to have a booth here at Cannes to promote our country. but I want my government to see what happens at Cannes. Can you film me? And they looked at me like I was mad, right? And then they called their boss, and there were two young people, and they called, one was from the US and one from Germany, and they're working for HBO. And they looked at each other, and I said, I have how many pounds I have. They said, no, it's okay, we will do it. I guess just for the kick of it. And they filmed me, and I gave them my email. I said, you don't have to edit it, just send it to me, and so on. And they sent it to me edited, fully edited, you know. So then I told him, I'm going to try to get you a flight to Barbados, and you come and enjoy. I don't have nothing, but I run in my mouth. And then I come home, I show the Minister of Culture. I showed him everything, and he was like, "What? You got all of this here? HBO, whatever." And then he says, "Okay, we'll give them tickets to come to Barbados, and they could film and take it back, and they came and filmed Barbados and showed it on HBO. So this is not the first. So
Yes,
we need to
yes.
understand context, right? Woody Allen is who they
Yeah.
were waiting to film. They were camping out to film him. So this is not we need to come and get over ourselves. And there are people like Maxine McLean and all these people she was Minister of Foreign Affairs, and who have traveled all over the world and represented Barbados. Let's, don't get it twisted. People have been doing this for years.
I have one, but it is not as fabulous as yours, but you will get the drift when they get there. We were in France attending the World Conference of Credit Unions general meeting, and with the Barbados delegation. Myself, Pearson Bellamy, and a few of us were at the table, and we were talking to some people. And Pearson asked the young lady if she knew she know anything about Barbados. She says the only thing she know about Barbados is that Commonwealth is the best school in Barbados.
I am laughing at that one.
Yeah,
I'm
because
laughing
no,
at that
no,
one.
she studied in France, and she studied with a Commonwealthian. So she said, but every time he opened his mouth, he talk about Commonwealth. So she said the only thing she know about Barbados is that Commonwealth was the best school, because we Commonwealthians, we don't only um, advertise and promote Commonwealth, we promote Barbados too. So he was telling all the good things. you know.
Minister, right, Stephen Lashley, thank you. I forgot. And he's going to kill me if I forget his name. But after we got, I have to say though, that after we got, and I fight up myself and tell them off and everything, I have to be honest about that. Then they did come on board, and the
Yes.
government, yes, they did. We had a premiere in Washington where, the former Attorney General was there with his entire family, and they watched the film, and the government did support. After, of course, after we got to where, how it goes. But Minister Lashley, he really did try his very, very best to make sure I didn't get embarrassed, and because I'm going out, I'm pushing. What I was doing, Minister Franklin, Mr. Franklin, I was trying to push the film industry. You see,
That would be
I
Minister
was,
of
I was
Religion.
that
That would have to be
You
Minister of
you
Religion.
you've
I
been
was
Minister of Labor.
I was trying to push. I was trying to push the film industry. I was trying to push us and to get us out there and to get quality, and so that people all over the world, they can see, oh, that came out of Barbados, because I was in the south of France talking about film, and all they're talking to me about is the beach and Rihanna and whatever. This is serious business meeting. They didn't see that we had anything to do with film. They didn't see the business part of the film industry. So, it's really it was really an experience, and I didn't come on here to talk about all of this tonight. But I love film and all that, so we're spending all of this time. But I what I really wanted.
Marcia, it's good for the people to hear this. It really is, because you mentioned about how you were able to accomplish this and what others can do, and so it's really good for them to be inspired by your story. So I'm not going to let you get away with that. Okay. It's good to inspire a person with your history and to see where you have been. And if Marcia has done that, who am I that I can't do that too, or equal, or
Precisely.
something of the line
Yeah,
of that nature,
and
you know?
I want
So
that. That's really what I want, Mr. Franklin. I want us as Barbadians to really get up and do. Get up
yeah,
and do. We can call
yes.
into the program. We could come on a program like this, Mr. Franklin, and we can say all the things that we see that's wrong. But I see you get up every day and help people. Every single day, Mr. Franklin is helping people. I see it with my two eyes, Dr. Ferdinand, and I'm amazed at it. I don't know how when he sleeps, but I'm saying to everybody, all 404 of us that's on here, to really find something. This is 2024, and say, I want to do this to my country. I want to do this. I remember as you're talking, you inspired me to stop. You know, Mr. Franklin, that I had gotten permission to film in the parliament. That first scene that you saw there was in the
Yes.
parliament,
I
Yes,
recognize. I
yes.
and we
recognize it.
got the permission. And the BLP, I want to speak straight now. They had a problem because they were fighting this movie from day one. From day one, they are afraid of this Barrow film. You hear what I tell you? Remember, I told you this prime minister refused to be in the film after being scheduled 2 times. Her father being scheduled and was not, did not show up.
And the thing is, when he had to leave the Barbados Labour Party, Barrow rescued him and made him Consul General of New York. So he should be singing Barrow's praises to the day he dies.
Well, they did not show up. They did not show up. And they had a problem. And so they decided after, this is now after we have rented, we have the entire after we have the entire um we were in St. John, and so we set up we set up in St. John at the Codrington College, and we flew in all of the everybody come in, the whole crew from the US, because we just really wanted to do it well. And then we had another crew from Barbados, then they were learning because we had an apprenticeship kind of a set, because I believe that they needed to leave something in Barbados. We're paying them all this money, and they weren't going to leave, and we didn't have people here that were trained. So for every crew member, they had a Barbadian working with them, and then we had others underneath them, and they were teaching them how to build sets, and it was a training set, really. We paid all that money, spending thousands of dollars a day. And these people to look at me, Mr. Franklin, the day before, no, sorry, 2 days before, to tell me that they have changed their minds because the other side is having problems with us filming in
So
Parliament and
childish, so
upstairs.
childish, so
Let me tell
childish.
you something. I told them then. I said, listen, I told the speaker, I said, okay, I'm going to remove the scene from the, I'm not filming anywhere. Mike Fingal and all of them said, let's go to a school and calm down, Mrs. Weeks. Mark Fingal's, Stetson, Welcher, all of them, they were in it. And I told them, I'm going to scratch it. I had all those big Calypsonians in their blood and all of them. And they were up there rehearsing. And I told them what happened. And I said, I'm scratching the scene. If I don't film it in the parliament, Mr. Franklin, no scene. And all of you could go home. And I told them, I told the speaker, I said, these are the people that are in the film. And all of this here, I'm going to scrap it. They said, oh, we can make a set and let's, I said, no, on a matter of principle, Mr. Franklin. You told me, and where am I? Where in Barbados I am going to do a scene to look like the Parliament, Mr. Franklin, in 2 days? That's not acceptable. And they were with me. Minister called me. Stephen Latchy said, Marcia, I can't do. I don't know. I said, well, I'm sorry. Well, it's out of the film. I will film everything else. I'm not doing it. And before the end of the day, I was called and told that, what, come and film.
You
Because
know,
I
but
wasn't taking
Marcia,
video.
I made a comment just now, and I think I needed to expand because people might hear me say this and they'll be in passing. What people do not know is that May's father, Elliot, he was the member of parliament for the city, the Barbados Labour Party member of parliament for the city of Bridgetown. There was some falling out in the party. I know more of the details, but those details are not for here. And he resigned his seat, and I think he left in tears. And then that's in 1976. I well remember. I was still around then. It was early '76, and then Billy Miller ran because there were two by elections in '76. David Simmons in I think it was he went to that was the first time he went to the house, and then Billy Miller came later because Billy Miller went. David Simmons went on when Maxwell was he was the speaker. He was member of parliament for St. Philip North, and he left in disgrace. He was declared bankrupt, and and if you're bankrupt, you cannot be a member of the house. So his seat was declared vacant. Simmons ran and won, and then that set the mood for the change in '76. And then Billy won after because actually I can't remember the days, but I remember the very day David Simmons entered the house for the first time was the actual day Elliot Motley resigned. So they told him never cross paths in the house. I don't remember the actual date, but I remember the time, the day that happened, because it was following politics for a long time. I just start. And so when he left the Barbados Labour Party, Elliot Motley left the Barbados Labour Party, he went to BARROW. And BARROW had mercy on him, even though he was just in Parliament cursing BARROW a few weeks earlier, because he was the opposition. BARROW made him Consul General in New York. And that is when some mayor and all of them grew up as DLPs. She only came back in the DLP when the DLP didn't run her in when Sandiford was prime minister. She wanted to run in the same constituency. She said no, but Barrow said no because Leroy Brathwaite was the incumbent and he wouldn't retire and he wasn't going to force him out. So then Mayor ran for Barbados Labour Party and lost the first time, and then she won the second election, and that was 1991, and then she won in '94. She's won ever since then. But Barrow made them, and having made them, the least they could have done is to come on. I saw David Simmons in the making a comment on the show. So,
Yes, yes,
but I
he's
will
a
tell you,
thinker.
he and Barrow were really great friends. Mind you, they would put lashes on each other when they were in the house, but they were really good friends. I saw that, and I remember I had prayed a place at Tom Adams' funeral, and I saw Barrow standing right next to me at the funeral, and tears were streaming down his cheek when Tom was being buried. I saw that with my eyes, nobody didn't tell me. So people get mixed up with these politicians and things. And right now, the politicians that we have now, it's trying to create enemies for each other. They were not enemies before, they were opponents. And they lived good with each other. And now we are changing that. Mind you, they're changing it even within the party. If it is a fellow that you don't want, because remember they took out let's see, a guard from Christchurch West. So the Barbados Labour Party now is changing politics and Barbados to our detriment, to the worst, as becoming tribal.
Yeah.
So,
You
but
know,
sorry for that
yeah, that's
tribalism,
fine.
I know realized it started even as far back as 9 years ago.
Yes,
Yeah.
I see,
they did not.
I'm now dating it.
I am telling you, they did not want. I was threatened. I was threatened. My career, or my being able to do things in this country was threatened if I did this movie. I remember the day. And they didn't just stop there, Dr. Purdy. They would call, and I was told I would never get a cent. You won't get any money from the private sector to do it. This is what the man told me. He spoke it like it was a fact. You understand? And they told me not to do this to it. They were afraid of it. And so any comment that you see going around was also written from 9 years ago. And because there is a fear of this film, and I want Barbadians who are listening to take away from this is that hold your ground. Hold your ground about what you believe. Stick with it. If I didn't stick with it and say I'm not putting the scene in the parliament, what that meant is that the people, the minister had to work harder, Minister Lashley, to make sure that the Speaker of the House allow me to film in Parliament, and they would be, all of those Calypsonians, they would be very angry with them. Wait, no, you saw Stetson Barber had on hair on his head.
Yeah.
A wig was made for him. There were people who make wigs, Barbadians. We found Barbadians in LA, and they flew the wigs down. Barrow's suit was flown down. Somebody, a white lady, a little white girl, flew down with the wig, with Barrow's suit.
Wow.
Flew with the suit, and because the woman who was there, Marietta Carter Narcisa, a Bajan, working in film for 20 years, was getting the suit made in LA. And it was some delay, something happened, and we had to shoot. And I'm like, oh God, what are we going to do? And she went online and she said, could any of my students do me a favor? If you're living in the Los Angeles area, and she gave them, and one little white girl said, I'll do it. And she flew from LA, Pastor, came to the airport, handed us the suit, went right back, never came out to make sure that this was done. Adrian, the guy who played Barrow, doesn't have any hair on his head. If you go and check him now, he's a Bajan, left Barbados when he was probably could be 8 years old or something, and was won lots of awards overseas, especially in Canada, in filmmaking. A wig was made to put on his head. The punch that he had, they made a belly and flew it down to Barbados. That's the level of filmmaking that we were doing. Yes, in Barbados.
I'm laughing. I'm laughing because Casual doesn't need to have one flown down.
They say I was saying, I have mine naturally, and people have to go and do all that kind of stuff. I think I'm going to keep mine.
We even wanted to film. Now, remember, I am not doing I'm not doing a political film because I don't business with no politics, and I kept telling them that. When I read the book in Canada on Mr. Barrow, I had there was nothing in politics. I cried, Mr. Franklin, when I read that book. It was a tiny little book, right? And I read the book and I cried. I read it a second time, and that's when I knew in my heart I have to make this into a film. It was like a calling. I wasn't thinking anything about any politics. So I came home and I was looking at where the locations. You know where I chose? You would never guess. You would. Now I look at it, I laugh at myself. I chose what's the name of that place? Okay, I'm gonna tell you where it is, but apparently it's a BLP place, but I had no idea. I just love the furniture in the place and the way it looked. Help me, Father. This is close to the stadium. There's at the corner there. Somebody help me with it. It's a place. I can't. Somebody.
You mean across from the traffic lights?
Yes.
Yeah, wasn't that Caswell? Wasn't that?
That's Terrell Court. That was where
Terrell
Granny
Court.
Adams.
Yes,
That was Granny Adams.
That was Granny Adams's. Yeah, that was Granny Adams's residence.
Yes, I chose there. Honestly, I did not know because I wanted to film. I love the room. I love the furniture, and I wanted it to look like a period piece. So I chose there, and we were going to film in all these beautiful rooms. That's all I knew. Do you understand? I wasn't making a partisan film, right? I didn't know anything about that. So when I'm doing everything, and the date is set for when the filming is supposed to happen and so on, I noticed the people on the DLP, they're looking at me funny. So we would have got, I go and I do the pre-interview, and whenever I told them to roll call, they didn't tell me anything like good Bajans, but I could feel something was off. And it's my little friend that became my friend, the old gentleman in the film, who's passed on now, and he started the Fridays at Ascot, Ascot, Astor Watts, Astor
Astor
Watts,
Watts.
right? Astor Watts is who called me one day and he said, Mrs. Weeks, I want to do this film, but I tell you the truth, I am not going up into that building. I said, which building? He said, the building you have to film the movie in. I said, you mean Tirelka? He said, yes, I'm not going up there. I said, what is wrong with it? He said, that is Grantley Adams' home or something.
Yeah.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus. And then when I started to talk to all of the others, I realized they're not going either. They were only going along with me. Nobody telling me anything. So they said, find a neutral place. I had to go and find a neutral place to go put the film, right? And that's how we ended up at, I don't know all these places, but this is where we ended up. It's in Wildy, right up there. You have to go up behind Carter's, behind
Yes.
Carter's,
Yes. Yeah. I
right?
don't know the name of it, but I know the
But a
property.
historic building, not as
Yeah.
nice as Tyrrell Court. The outside is nicer than Tyrrell Court, but the furniture in Tyrrell Court was very authentic to that period, right? And that's important that you get all of those things right. So, but they wouldn't. The DLP,
Yes. Really great
they,
house.
most of them, they did not want to go there, and they told me afterwards when I spoke with like the minister, then he said, no, Marcia, you really need to change that. You're gonna have problems. And so, Will the Great House,
Yeah.
thank you,
Really great house.
Will the Great House, and and then we moved it to Will the Great House, and thinking that we would have gotten more of the BLP people involved, but the main ones that we wanted, the Motleys, they didn't come there either. But I tell you, this
You
as
know. You know.
again, I go ahead, Pastor.
Listening to this. Listening to this, you would think you're dealing with children.
Yeah,
You wouldn't think you're dealing with adults who are interested in the history of our country. I was talking with an officer last night, police officer I spoke to you about, and I was saying to him that one of the things that needs to be taught in our school is Barbadian history. And that documentary did is a historic documentary. Very few, I don't know, Kazul, do you know of any documentaries done of our political stalwarts? I mean, people like Bramford Tate, Henry Ford,
None.
Breeze St. John, any of them, that has come down through time. And a lot of the young people don't know anything about these people. And
mm-hmm.
so, as you come through the school system, it's so important to know where we have come from and what we have come through as a country, because only then will people begin to appreciate what they have and what their parents went through and grandparents went through, and all of these different kinds of things that happen in our lives. And that's why, Marcia, I really am happy that you're taking the time to rehearse this for so many of us to hear,
Mm-hmm.
because it's important for the story to be told. And you're dealing with a child, sorry, with a childish, I did not say childlike, childish attitude when you have people who are so politically connected that they
Yes.
don't recognize history. And that is regrettable, and it's sickening. That is where we are today. Caswell, you were talking a moment ago about the things that you experience in terms of the interchanges with people. I remember my first journey to the House of Assembly with my mother, and I was sitting in the public gallery, and I saw Tom Adams and Errol Barrett go at it. I mean, I thought they were going to beat one another. And then out of the blue, after the speeches were given and, the crosstalk and all of that, I saw Errol Barra get up and go and make a signal to Tom Adams, and they went behind the speaker's chair. And I, as a young person now getting into, I'm going like, hey, what? Because I'm out there killing people for these guys. I'm out there canvassing and all of that. And they broke for lunch, and I have never forgotten it. I walked into the lunchroom of the House of Assembly, and Errol Barr was sitting at the top of the table. Tom Adams was sitting on the side of the table next to him, and they were laughing and they were having a good time. And I said, what? Never again will I go out there killing anybody for these guys. Never. And that's the problem we have in Barbados now. We do not know how to value our country more than our politics. And that's the challenge that we have today. We need to get, and I promoted it in my campaign. I am sick and tired of the traditional politics of Barbados. It has been divisive, and it has not benefited us as a people, in my view.
But
That is my view.
It has only been divisive among the voters and the masses. They give them that
Yes.
impression that
That
they
is
were
exactly it.
that give the impression
Thank
that they are
you.
enemies. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you. That is it.
My
That is it.
experience.
That's well put.
I
Well put.
remember just after I left school, I was looking around for a job and stuff, and I had to what they call it, balance the mics and stuff in the house, because in those days it was a manual thing. Then the speaker mic was number one. You had to keep that one on all the time, and then you had 27 other microphones, and when somebody get up to speak, you would turn off. You felt that spot on, and 12, 6, something, turn on his, so that you don't get the kind of squealing and stuff, because it was not the sophisticated thing as we had now. And then we used to record them on these
The big reels.
big reels.
Big reels.
So when it was finishing, I would have to change the reel, and I think and then, like, for instance, if it was a bit tardy in turning on the mic for somebody, because somebody got, you don't want me to talk in here, and that kind of thing. Poor me, I just went to school, and mind you, I had supported the Barbados Labour Party then, but I didn't get a job at the Barbados Labour Party. My sister's boyfriend worked at the government electrical engineers department, and he asked the guy if I can get the job to do that on Tuesdays. So that's why I got in. It wasn't any political anything. So I went in there, and mind you, I was only known in St. Thomas. So the politicians from the Barbados Labour Party, who didn't know me, would curse me when they don't turn on their mic fast enough. They would laugh. They got to know me eventually. But the point I'm trying to make is that then they would curse each other. And they would, on the floor, you have the gallery, and the people up in the gallery ready to worked up.
Yes.
And then they would break for lunch, and they would go into the lunchroom. The lunchroom is now where the speaker's office is. That used to be the lunchroom. And you go in there, man, and you hear them asking the most intimate questions. How did the little girl, she was sick last week, talking about something, the other fellow on the other side's daughter, that was sick last week. How's she doing? That kind of bit.
Yep.
How he know that, because that was a real experience when you asked about how the girl that was sick last week, and your daughter was sick last week, how she's doing now and thing. And they said, yeah. And people are fighting for them, and they start knowing the close, intimate details of each other. And then the last thing, the one that really brought it home to me, I was the vice president of St. Thomas branch, Barbados Labour Party. They just gotten fired from National Insurance when Tom Adams died. And I was not working, so there was someone asked me to come and work on his campaign, and then he would help me find a job after the election. So I said, well, I wasn't doing anything, so I went to work with him. So I go to his house, preparing things for the campaign. I'm there sitting down. He said, excuse me, cousin, I need to go to the bathroom. And while I'm there, I said, somebody come to the door, open the door, pull it. He didn't even knock. Who that was? The Deputy Prime Minister, Philip Graves. I said, because I didn't know the relationship then. The people were great friends. They were business partners.
Yes.
Philip was married to his sister and that kind of thing. And we out there fighting among each other.
They're killing one another.
Not knowing that these people not only friends, but they're family. And then he didn't even take off his shoes. I had mine off. I kicked mine off at the door because that floor was so immaculate. You could see your face in it. So I didn't want to walk through with my shoes. I took them off at the door. And Philip walked right through with his shoes on and going to sit down at the table. And when he come right back from me, he said, Philip, I'm there. You know, like, and a big thing. And I said, well, look at this, you know, I'll be here fighting. I have never, ever after that opposed anybody basis on their politics
No,
or try to
no.
get somebody out. I said never. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
David Thompson and I we were the greatest friends. We were at school together, and I was older than he. I was about 2 or 3 years older than he was. And I remember the first day he came to Conmere, people said, "Oh, Tom Adams' son come to Conmere, you know." And of course, no, I'd like Tom Adams. Tom Adams is representative of St. Thomas. I found St. Thomas, so I want to meet this boy. I thought it was a genuine thing. So I saw him like 2 days after the school started, walking across the pasture, and I called him. You know, he had to come because he's a big boy, you know. And he came. I said, "You're Tom Adams' son?" He said, "No." He said, "But I appreciate your asking because everybody walking about talking foolishness, but you're the only body that come and ask me anything." But I wanted to know, so I asked. And from that day to the day he died, we were friends. You know, we worked together in the library. I picked him on to work in the library because I was responsible for school library, and I picked him on to work. Maybe we were good, but we never let politics get into our relationship. You know, and
Caswell, I grew up with a mother that was very interactive with the Minister of Education. My mother sat on the national. I think you would have known my mother, Caswell.
I knew her from
Right?
National Council.
Yeah, and she sat on the National Council of the Barbados Labour Party, and she campaigned against the Democratic Labour Party. And when politics were over, the campaigns were over, my mother was in Erskine Sandiford's office sitting down talking education. And that is what I grew up watching, that friendly camaraderie with Branford Tate and all the DLP members, and that is what I saw. We didn't have these acid almost, like people want to kill one another. And that's why I'm saying, some time ago I was on the show, Marcy, and I made this comment. Our choice is now between morals and values and politics, because we have to do what is the right thing, and we have to do it because we believe it. That's where the values come from. The values come from your belief system. And because of that belief system, which predominantly in Barbados is Christian, because of that belief system, we see the value in people. We see the value in our country. We see the value in our young people. That's where our belief system gives us our values and our morals. When something is wrong, regardless of who it is, we ought to be able to say it is wrong, even if he's your buddy and pal, and even if he's sitting next to you on the front bench in the House of Assembly. If they're wrong, they're wrong. And that is the problem we are having currently in our parliament. And I am challenging, and I'm publicly challenging them yet again to do the right thing.
It is the only
Do
parliament,
the right.
because I remember the last, when, I mean, I tell off every politician in Barbados. The only politician, I can't remember the only prime minister I didn't have any noise with, I can't remember, who was that? I think it was Frandl, Every me and everybody else had noise about something. Tom Adams, me, he was prime minister and representative of St. Thomas and St. Thomas branch meeting, and me, he going at it. I remember one night I'm telling him off, and the old men in the group get up and start cursing me, man. And I said, like, see something? I ain't coming back here. These people too ignorant, man. I felt like crawling under a rock. I was right. I knew I was right. And I attacked the prime minister because, and then St. Thomas has this peculiar thing. They have prayers in the beginning of the meeting and prayers at the end. So when the prayers were being said at the end of the meeting, Tom Adams moved away from the front, the front, and went by the door. Well, I was too proud to walk out of there. I took my licks. And I then decided, well, look, no, first I can go. But as soon as I get to the door, Tom hugged me up. He said, young man, you were right, but you can't attack me in St. Thomas. and because I felt really bad, I was right. I knew I was right. And the old man cursed me because I was criticizing the prime minister. Man, I felt angry. And I said, well, I came back here. But Tom recognized something was wrong. And when he When I
Yeah.
was approaching the door, he reached out and he hugged me and he says, "Young man, you were right, but
Yeah.
you can't attack me." I said, "Thomas," and I laughed then, you
Yeah,
know.
but that is the kind of thing that we need to see, happening. We need to be able to speak up, to hold our ground. Opposition, hold your ground. As you hear Mr. Franklin saying, he stood up for what he knew, what was the right thing, and that is what I say. And this another story. What the last thing I'll tell you, because I just feel compelled to encourage people with this. The last thing that I want to say, and I think I said it, I don't know if I told Mr. Franklin this one, but this one had me where we were now going to book tickets, right? And I want people to realize from these stories what I'm telling you, that it's not now I've been nonpartisan, and it's not now that I've been fighting these snakes. You understand? Listen, we got some tickets. They said at the time, the then government said that they are going to, after we got Eric Holder, they said, okay, they're coming on board and this is what they're going to do. They gave me in writing. I went to a small black business in Barbados and I sent them the information. Well, I talked to them on the phone. They said, I want to see it in writing before I go and issue the tickets. They went ahead and they issued the tickets, Mr. Franklin, thousands of dollars of airline tickets. Okay? Over 20 something thousand of airline dollars of airline tickets issued. I think it was 25 or $28,000. Okay? You believe I am sitting in my office one evening, right? Now this is not like a couple weeks now, say 2 weeks before the people come into the country, the crew and all the actors and everybody, and they are going to tell me that they changed their mind. You believe that, Mr. Franklin and Dr. Ferdinand
Yep,
and
I believe it.
Yeah, I can tell you.
I
they
can believe
told
it.
me that they changed their mind. So I was there. It was even after hours, and my staff, two of my staff members, and me, and we were there. And I had the phone. I just said, you know what? I just at that point I would just give up. I said, it's okay, whatever. I said, okay, okay, sir. And then they sent me an email to say what they just said. And something turned inside of me. I tell you, that maroon got in me. That nanny got in me, Mr. Franklin. I pick up that phone and I told them, I called the man, I'm not calling any names on here. But if he listening, he know that who I'm talking about. And I called him and I said to him, I said, let me tell you something. What you are doing is wrong. And it's not just wrong to me, but it's this black business that said to me they needed something they needed confirmation. And I asked you for the confirmation, and you sent me an email with the Barbados Tourism logo, I think at the bottom. Okay. And I have that. And I'm telling him, I said, listen, you will honor these tickets, or I am going to a lawyer and I'm going to the call in the media tomorrow. And with that, oh, are you threatening me? And I put down the phone. And he went for his boss and he was calling, and I did not answer. They called and they called and they email and they email, and because I told them I'm going to the media tomorrow. I'm going to call the media and I'm going to tell them everything that you are doing. And nothing. The next then I wrote to the Prime Minister. I wrote to every consul general that I knew. I wrote to everybody I knew to the highest level. And I let them know. I wrote them one email and talked to them about what? About integrity, about standing by your word and what it means to stand by your word. And I told them, I am going to embarrass every single one of you. And I tell you, by the next morning, a new email was sent and they were started the process of paying those tickets. And what am I saying to us again this evening? We don't take no for an answer. right? We don't take no for an answer. You stick to your guns. Do what it is that you have to do. Stand up for what you know it is right. And for me at that time, Reverend, it wasn't about the tickets anymore. It was about integrity. It was about this black business that would have been out
But
20. I paid the $25,000. So those tickets are already issued. What is she supposed to do when you gave your word? And you know what? They covered everything. And I must say that the Prime Minister of Barbados at that time made sure that we got everything after that incident. We got everything that we needed. And I'm just telling the truth so that is the truth on every side. That we need to be able to stand our grounds, speak up, open your mouth, say what you have to say, stand up, be respectful. I know. I don't think he understood one word because I said I was so vexed. I was talking fair Jamaican on them, you know. But we got what we needed, and everything was paid for. Now I wanted to see how important this movie is and why they are afraid of it. They are afraid of this film from the very inception of the film. They have been afraid of it, and that's why I say to us, watch the film. Stepbystepfilms.com. You can go there and get it. And my husband's dream, Mr. Franklin, is to get this film in every community. This film, every time it is played, it is a weapon. It is a weapon. You know why? Barrow is speaking from the grave. It is a tool. Let's use a positive. It's a tool. Barrow is speaking from the grave, and they cannot shut him up through this film. Yeah? That,
Marcia, why, I saw the film for the first time last night, and all it did was to recap reality. It recapped the reality, not all of it, some of it, of the reality of Errol Barrow's existence. And some of it I actually saw for the first time. I knew he cooked and whatnot, but I did not know that he showed Harold how to pick pigtails. I didn't know that part. And if Harold was alive today, I would have gone after Harold today. I would have called Harold today to find out if he got the right pigtails. But there are little things like that I did not know about him. And I campaigned against him in 1976. I was on the campaign trail against him. But my mother taught me to give Jack his jacket. And I understood that to mean that when a person is worthy of kudos, give them their kudos. It doesn't matter whether they are with you or you're an opponent or whatever. And you just do those things. Those are listen. There's a saying: reputation is temporary, but character is permanent. And I want character in people, right? I want to hear. Um, Okay, I see someone is saying something about no song. Y'all are hearing me, right?
Yes, I'm here, you.
I'm hearing you as well, and I'm hearing you too, Marcia. Um, but nevertheless, and I'll tell you, I'm really thankful for the picture, and I saw someone post it in the chat. It would be of great value. Sometimes, Kaz, we used to have these movie times at school, in primary school. Sometimes the what you call it used to come around in the
The mobile
evening,
cinema.
mobile cinema, but we don't have that anymore. But I think it would be of value for this documentary to be shown to some of our students in school, because sometimes people don't appreciate what they have on the basis of where we have come from and what we have passed through. So I really want to thank you, Marcia, for being so tenacious. And what it's saying to us is that when you remain tenacious, I once heard an old preacher say, be like a postage stamp, stick to it until you arrive. And don't back up. I have a number of videos that we have lined up tonight. One of them is a massive protest in Germany,
yes.
and I think it's something to do with the farmers or something like that. And I was thinking to myself, wow, this is what we need in Barbados. This is what we need here. We need the people to come out and protest things. You know, you have an ID card, compulsory ID card being introduced, and I wish we had the time tonight to touch on some of this, but we have a compulsory ID card being introduced at the end of this month. Where are the people standing up? Because I'll tell you, this ID card is a precursor to the intended plan of the globalists, particularly the World Health Organization, who are now working together with the United Nations in order to make this mandatory across the world so that they can shut you down, so that they can lock you away, not lock you up, lock you away in another pandemic. And they are planning the next pandemic. It has come out of the mouth of Bill Gates. It has come out of the mouth of the World Health Organization. If you watch it tonight, you will see here in the clip the woman literally say it, and she's speaking on the behalf of the WHO. And so I'm grateful for the example that you have set, that you will not be deterred by anyone to accomplish what you believe you need to do. And I really want to thank you for taking the time. This has not been a wasted exercise for the last hour, 25 minutes. I think it has inspired a lot of us and encouraged a lot of the people who are listening. And some people I saw making the comment about this is the first time they've heard some of these things, you know, and so I really want to commend you. I know you're not the kind of person that, you know, likes to be in the limelight, so to speak, but there are times when you give honor to whom honor is due. Agreed, Caswell?
Definitely.
Yes, thank you very much. So you are voted out in this one, Marcia. I
Yes,
think the eyes.
I know
I
that
think the.
Caswell came on. Caswell had
I,
something that he wanted
I
to
think
speak
the
on.
eyes have it. I think the
Yeah,
eyes have it.
Caswell had something he wanted to speak on. I'm done now. I think this is the most I know I talk for any of the shows. So over to you. Let's let Caswell, and then we're gonna go to
Yeah.
the ID thing because we have to deal with that before we end. Yes. So let Mr. Franklin share, and then Pastor we will, yeah.
Well, there was actually two things that I wanted to talk about. Because one is simply that I am not going to let this thing die where the Prime Minister case closed. I want to talk about that. I want to keep it fresh in people's mind. But what I want to talk first about is some newspaper reports that I saw during the week last week, where we are being informed that the QEH, Queen Elizabeth Hospital, it has recruited or is in the process of recruiting a fellow from Britain to be the chief executive officer at the hospital. I wish to point out to the government that there is no such post at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. They went ahead and they amended the legislation against my recommendation and Monique Tate, because she and I, we got up in the Senate and we spoke against the amendments. We thought they were ill-conceived, it was partisan, it was just trying to find a job for the minister's wife. And we opposed it. Now that we've proven to be correct that she was not suited for the job, she's gone. And now they want to change it back to CEO because they had made her executive chairman. You don't have those in the public service. You know, you have a chairman who chairs the board, and you have a CEO or director or whatever you have at the statutory board who run the organization, the business. But she had both roles, so she was most powerful, and she reported to the prime minister as opposed to the board, and had the power and the leeway to do most anything. But what it didn't do was to make the hospital any better. Now they've seen the error of their ways and they're coming back. But if you want to come back, you have to employ a new executive chairman, or you have to amend the Hospital Act, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital Act, to say that there's no longer a chief executive, executive chairman, and we are going to replace him by or we can go back to what they had before. But you have to do that. You went to Parliament to effect the change when you came made Juliet by North Sutherland the executive chairman. You had to go to Parliament. No, you
Mhm.
are undoing that, and you can just do it without telling anybody about anything. This government is too lawless. You have to
So you're
obey the
saying that
law.
they're changing the CEO and not following the correct the legal procedure to do that?
There are no changing back to CEO.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to do so, you have to go to Parliament. You can't do it and then come and say, well, okay, because we have 30 seats, we can do what we like, and then come back and make the change sometime down the road. No, you got to follow the law like everybody else. That is, when you refuse to follow the law, that is called anarchy. And for the government to be the lawmaker and the
The
lawbreaker at
lawbreaker.
the same time, it does not bode well for this country, you know. Because unless the people alone will get away with things like this that might not be as massive, they will then start doing more and more and more and more till eventually they can do what they like. They can even rule like they did during the pandemic without going to Parliament. Now this is the pandemic is over, the state of emergency is over. They don't have these extraordinary powers, but they're using them because you can only behave like this during a state of emergency. We have none. So what is this government trying to tell us? You can't go about behaving like this and then go and hold a straight face and make people believe that you are um, above reproach and walking about calling one another honorable this and honorable that. You cannot be honorable and behave dishonorably. And this is what they're doing. So that's what we have to look out for. These people tending to ignore what the rules are, what the law is, because they have the power and they don't have any body. And this ties right in to what they want to fall into because, and I have to thank Adrian Hines because I was relying on the 1929 piece of legislation when I said that Santia, having taken the money from the what they call it, the insurance, not insurance, the engineering firm, that can be to be interpreted as taking a bribe. She should not do it. And the law points out the old act, and then Adrian showed me because I didn't know that this act was brought into force. I was in Parliament when it was debated, but I wasn't aware that it came into force. So Adrian, I got to thank you again for drawing it to my attention. So it is in place. And what is because and they thought that what she did was so wrong that they said the penalties on indictment is $1.5 million. Yeah, $1.5 million before the High Court. An indictment is just that you go to the High Court. And summary is before a magistrate, $500,000. It is $1.5 million and 15 years in prison, or both, or before a magistrate, $500,000 or 10 years or both. Summary conviction, $500,000, 10 years or both. But also, it goes on at section 13 to say that you're disqualified from holding public office for 10 years, in addition to any other penalty prescribed by law. So even if you are, when they fine you that $500,000 or that $1.5 million, you can still be banned from holding public office for 10 years. This is legislation that Santi voted for. So she has no excuse. She has absolutely no excuse. And so that's why I linked the two of them. Because here we are, we have legislation saying you can't do X, and they do it anyway. We have legislation that says there is no longer a CEO and they're going to appoint one anyway. So what else are they going to do? Or what else have they done that has not come to light yet? We need this government needs to behave within the law. Has to operate within the law. You cannot behave like this and expect people to say, or the government could do that, but if the government could do it, we can do too. We can break the law too. Was just recently we had a guy who went to the polyclinic on Thursday and put a knife on a nurse because the clinic opened at 8:30 and by 8:30 he thought he waited too long and he pulled a knife. And so this bad behavior, even
Mm-hmm.
it's spreading throughout the land because the government is behaving badly. Everybody said, but the government could behave bad too. They,
Correct.
they have to set an example. You cannot, but cannot. You should not because they're doing it. You should not behave like this because young people are watching. And when young people see you do these things, they don't say, do, and you cannot say to young people, do as I say and not as I do. Young people learn by example.
Yes.
You have to set the example. I tell people when I was in town walking with my children and they were small, I'm on the road opposite Cave Shepherd. I want to cross the road and I walk up to traffic lights and walk across and walk back down. Normally I would dash across in front of the traffic, but my children did there. So I had to behave in a manner that my children will see what they should do. Because everyone on the road going to get hit. But I do it all the time when I talk about myself. You know what I mean? It's called jaywalking. It's against the law, but yeah, everybody does it. But when I had my children with me, and they were small, I walk up to the thing, walk across, and come back down. And instead of walking a few yards, I walk a good side and come back down. This is what you got to do. Government must behave like a parent and set the example. These people are not setting an example. They are behaving very badly,
Yeah.
and they
Someone is
have to
saying
stop.
that they're behaving as though we're still in a state of emergency, and where they're getting up and I'm seeing it over and over. And Mr. Franklin points this out to us on the program all the time, where Dr. Ferdinand, this government is going about and they are making up their own. They make the laws, they break the laws, they delay up until now. Which we need to do our show on that, Mr. Franklin. We don't hear nothing about the Constitution again. The new Constitution. They keep just doing as they like, as you're saying.
Well, Marcia, the two clips that I have are so pertinent. One clip is by and not that I'll do it now because I'll be guided accordingly, but one of the clips is by the Prime Minister of Singapore speaking about protecting our system or protecting their system. And one is by Miles Monroe indicating that politicians are not leaders. The two, it doesn't translate because you're a politician doesn't make you a leader. Kazel, when you're speaking within the context of our profession, we speak in there's a psalm that talks about the oil that flows down Aaron's is poured on Aaron's head and flows down his beard. And we often talk about how influence and behavior flows from the head down. It doesn't flow from the feet up. So wherever you see leadership, and notice I said leadership, wherever you see leadership functioning, everybody beneath leadership is going to assume it's okay to function that way. All right. Now,
Yeah, there's a little issue with your audio. There's a slight change. Yes,
yeah.
with
Are
your
are you
audio.
hearing me okay now?
Yes, I'm hearing you clear at this
Yeah.
point. Yes, continue.
Yeah. Okay. I think there may be because at times I'm seeing your image stalling and so on too. I think there may be a bit of a
Oh, it might
network
be on my
issue.
part. Could be.
No, no, no,
Okay.
no. It could be mine too, but I think it might be a network issue around. And sometimes this happens. So thank you for letting me know that. Yes. So these are the things that we need to address. Politicians are not automatic leaders. You don't become a leader because you're a politician, and integrity is so important. We want to tell young people about matters of integrity which we are not prepared ourselves to demonstrate. Now, um, integrity is not just a matter of not breaking the law. Integrity is a matter of doing what is right and doing the right thing. And one of the things I've observed, is that we are not being told the extent of a number of things that are being introduced and implemented. For example, the ID card. What is the intention of government by the end of 2024 for this ID card? The rest of the world has already told us what is going to happen. But is the government telling us what the intent is? That's one. You mentioned, I believe, Marcia, that the prime minister spoke about the capacity to pin the card or not to pin the card, and that there would be a differentiation in services, but we do not know what those services are. So persons cannot make an informed decision relative to that. And we can continue down this aspect where you are hearing things coming in through the back door. And then, as Caswell indicated, then it seems that you're going to Parliament to now implement a law. And that's not the way it ought to be done. And I am concerned about the fact that our Prime Minister, with all due respect to her, and I appreciated the fact that earlier in the comments, Ms. McLean made the point that Barbadians need to recognize that in the two parties that are, well, not the two parties in politics, politicians are not enemies; they are opponents,
Mm-hmm.
and there's quite a difference between the two. You can oppose. We are not enemies with anybody. I am not an enemy with anybody, and I know, Marcy, you're not an enemy, and Kazul is not an enemy. But we are opposing certain processes which we feel are not conducive to the well-being and development of our country. Why can't you come out and tell Barbadians what it means and what is your full intent for the ID card? And I'm specifically focusing on the ID card because that is going to be implemented in another 9 days. What is the full extent of your intention? Last night I mentioned about the fact that the central bank is going to be introducing something called the central bank digital currency. Now, the central bank is responsible for money, the printing of money. When you're in a digital world, the central bank will have the same responsibility and control over the digital world. Now, what will that mean for the average Barbadian? Suppose we oppose the government, and the problem we have is that nobody trusts government anymore. It, it has lost that trust. And that is not just in Barbados. It has lost it in Trinidad. It's lost it in Jamaica. It's lost it in St. Vincent. It's lost it in the United States. It's lost it in the UK. It's lost it in Australia. We can go naming country after country, democratic country, where people are acting very autocratically. And that's what we're beginning to see happening here. And this is where I believe people are deeply concerned.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, Caswell. I
Caswell.
thought you were saying something there because
No, no,
you're raising these issues to us about the law, the making the law and breaking the law. This situation at the hospital in wanting now to get a CEO when they have to go to Parliament, but they're ignoring that. What is it that you are asking Barbadians to do? Because this is going on. This I have sat in this chair and it's going on over and over. In fact, we did a show, Mr. Franklin, where we counted up all the laws that they broke for in 2023. The government of the country. What are you asking Barbadians to do, Mr. Franklin?
I basically want Barbadians to take note and express their disgust at government's behavior, because if you don't speak out, government will think it is okay and they can do it again. I do not expect much from the legal side, because the people who are empowered to bring the prime minister to the courts to answer questions and stuff don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
This is not Israel. I well recall the Attorney General of Israel brought charges against the Prime Minister
Yeah.
because he was alleged to be breaking the law. In Barbados, we have a director of public prosecutions who, under this legislation, is the only body who can authorize any case against anybody for breaching this Prevention of Corruption Act. So I don't hold much hope that this will happen. But and the reasons why I say this is because the director of public prosecutions does not have a legal arm, an investigative arm
Mm-hmm.
in that department. They have to rely on the police.
Yeah.
Now the police has this particular relationship with the prime minister. In order to become commissioner of police, the prime minister has to give permission.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what the law says. That is the practice in Barbados. The law just says that the prime minister has to be consulted by the commission, right? And then you are seeing, but over the years, prime ministers have taken over consultation to mean that the prime minister decides who will become permanent secretary, deputy permanent secretary, head of department, and who is the deputy of that department. The prime minister have taken onto themselves, even though the law says otherwise. And this has been happening since 1975. Well, in all honesty, it's in 76 because Barrow passed the amendments in 74. They became effective in 75, January. But Barrow was fighting to save his government, so he didn't have time to deal with appointing the public officers and stuff. So it really came about that Tom Adams was the first prime minister really to delve into these constitutional amendments and start to appoint people in the public service and to recruit people in the public service rather than allow the agency set up by the Constitution
Mm-hmm.
to do the recruiting. Because the Constitution at Section 94, I'm most certain it's Section 94, I can always double check for you, says that the president, acting on the advice of the Service Commission, well, in that case, it used to be Public Service Commission. Now it is the Administrative General and Professional Service Commission. They decide on who will be appointed, who will be promoted, who will be disciplined in the public service. When the commission recommends to the president takes and say, aye. That is it. Recruiting of the temporary officers then became a province of the minister. But under now the Public Service Act that was passed in 2007 and became effective on the 31st of December 2007, just a couple weeks before the 2008 general election that the Barbados Labour Party lost, the Barbados Labour Party put in place the Public Service Act that says that I have it here, I don't stray too far from it. Section 3 says, this act applies to the following persons in the public service, whether appointed on or before the 31st of December 2007. A, public officers, and B, temporary employees.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that the provisions of this act applies to temporary officers as well as appointed officers. And who runs this act basically is the Ministry of Public Service through the service commissions, head of the public service. These are the people responsible for this act. Not a single MP, not a single MP has any power except the minister responsible for the public service who can make rules under Section 13 of this act. But they ignore this act too, even though it is their baby. They made it, they put this act in place. They make it and they ignore it now. So you can see a whole set of people on the street working, and they will say, oh, they are contract employees. They're not contract employees. They're working for the government, but the government then try to bypass the system that have been put in place to employ people because they can pick up anybody and put them inside the public service. Pick up anybody and call them a consultant. The Prime Minister does not have the authority to hire all these people that are being hired. And they can tell you, no, anything comes to, if push comes to shove, they're going to say, oh, it's the permanent secretary, not me. But the permanent secretaries must be mindful that they have a duty under the same Public Service Act. I think it's the second schedule. To let me find it for you and read it, because people think I'm making sport, you know. It's the Code of Conduct and Ethics. It says here, section 13, where a permanent secretary disagrees with a minister on a matter involving a decision by a minister or by the cabinet, the permanent secretary shall place on record his disagreement with any decision or proposed course of action which the permanent secretary finds difficult to defend, or whether, or which he has regard as inconsistent with his obligations to see that the administration of his department is carried out with due regard to the propriety of the proposed course of action, and he shall set out the reasons for his disagreement. Now, mind you, if the minister adheres to the decision, he has to write back to the permanent secretary and say, do what I tell you. This doesn't happen, because from the first time a minister tells the permanent secretary, no, minister, you can't do that. The minister pick your phone call, prime minister, I can't work with this body, don't want to do what I tell you. Even in this administration here, one minister likes expensive coffee, and the permanent secretary says, no, you got better in your pocket, $1,000 for coffee, and the permanent secretary got transferred.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I heard this the second time. I believe I heard you tell this story. This is what is happening in Barbados. This is what is happening, and I want the people to hear. There are over 551 of you on here tonight. Listen to what is happening, and the big question is, Dr. Ferdinand, is what are we going to do about this? We are the opposition. There are all 280,000 of us. We are hearing it. We are hearing it. We put those people there. Somebody asked tonight if the bar is if the people drunk. Where are the lawyers? Why is it that it's Mr. Franklin bringing this to the people's attention of all the laws that they are breaking? And they are able to break these laws, Dr. Ferdinand, because there is no opposition in Parliament. If there was opposition in Parliament, I tell you, there would be ding dong on the floor, as they would say. But we do not have any in there, and the people need to do the ding dong on the streets. And that is why when you hear us call for a march in the streets, it is that we need to have a visible opposition. That is what we are talking about. I had
Marcia, we have in our system a committee of Parliament called the Public Accounts Committee. It's set up by an Act of Parliament, and that committee is supposed to be chaired by the leader of the opposition. There is no leader of the opposition.
So there's no Public Accounts Committee.
But they should find a way to deal with government, because the Public Accounts Committee deals mostly with government spending. When they spend money inappropriately, as a matter of fact, the Public Accounts Committee reviews the Auditor General's report and investigate any matters that the Auditor General should highlight. There's no leader of the opposition. Why haven't they gone to Parliament and made sure there was some mechanism to have that in place? You want to know why? You got everybody in the cabinet. So you're going to have cabinet members investigating the members of the cabinet. because the cabinet is too big. A cabinet should never be bigger than the half the house, because the cabinet should be able to be voted in the house itself. Because when you see, we do not have a separation of powers in Barbados when it comes to the executive and the legislature, simply because the executive consists of the majority of the legislature. So when the executive cabinet makes a decision and brings it to Parliament, the same people who make the decision is coming back to approve the decision that they made. Now, if they had enough, like in England, where they got a big back bench, and if the cabinet put forward something and the back bench don't like it, they can say no. But our system of government, I would say, it's a parody of democracy. It does not. It is only in the form, not the substance. It is not a democracy of substance. The cabinet should never, ever be so large as to outvote the people in the house. I don't know if you're going to do. You're going to have increase the size of the house, which I think is ill-advised, or you're going to reduce the size of the cabinet. And the Constitution provides for a prime minister and a minimum of prime minister and 5 other ministers. You don't need so many. You don't need so many ministers, because the prime minister says many hands make light work. And what that has proven to be is that many hands makes no work for the majority of them, because they got nothing to do. When she was in opposition, Frandl had a cabinet of 17, including himself. And she said Barbados has a cabinet of 5 more than it is necessary for Barbados. 5 more, meaning that Barbados have no more than 12, according to her. When she took office, she appointed 26. She appointed 26 ministers.
She used the excuse, I would imagine, that we are living in a different era, and there's a lot more work to be done. And we have this situation recently with the appointment of Elizabeth Thompson for some what is it called again?
A shirker.
A shirker.
I know a Sherpa, but
a Sherpa. Is this?
She's actually a Sherpa. Like the fellas who climb Mount Tibet. But in her case, it's mostly shirker.
Yeah. Okay. I can leave you with that definition, because, you have a prime minister and who now holds somewhere in the ballpark of 8 portfolios, right? And when I look at the number of ministries that there are and the number of people that are in Parliament, I am asking, but why? Why do you need all of these people? That's not leadership. That's not leadership. And this is why I believe that we need to really put some pressure to reduce that cabinet size. I don't know how it's done. I mean, look, obviously in our new constitution, we got to put in stuff to make sure that some of the things that are happening now never ever happen again. This is what really, people are asking what has to be done. We have to make, all of us here, 566, need to be writing letters to the committee to do with the Constitution for the new republic, to ensure that what we are saying here never occurs again. And that laws are positioned where the people, and I have said this before, the people should be able to provide a certain percentage or number of signatures and take them to the president and have the president call an election. It must be put into our constitution where the people, that is a republic, by the people, of the people, for the people. Right now, the only person in this country as a republic that can call an election is the prime minister. The people have no say.
Look, Freddie, let me show you something. Many hands make light work. I remember, I think Cappy Greenwich used to be Minister of Education, Youth, Culture, and Sport. Right? Mm-hmm. Now his ministry is That ministry, there's a minister of education, there's a minister of youth, there's a minister of culture, there's a minister of sport. You know, you know, you got four. That ministry has been broken up into four to make jobs for four people, and ministers don't really do the heavy lifting.
No, they don't.
The permanent secretary and his staff does the heavy lifting. The ministers are responsible for policy. You set the policy and hand it over to the permanent secretary, and the permanent secretary get things going. If it's something that going to happen to a department, he contacts the department head. If it's a ministry thing, his admin officers and stuff in ministry write the papers and stuff. Ministers don't write cabinet papers. They don't do anything like that. They don't do any real work. They are like executive supervisors type of thing. So you
Right.
don't so when you hear prime minister talking about many has made light work, you want that means you want more public officers. You don't need more ministers because the public officers are the people who do the work. And if they're gonna make it late, you're gonna make it late for them. You're gonna employ more of them. But of course, because this country does not have a system where we teach civics, let people understand our constitution, how it works, and how our government works, the prime minister can get up and say fancy things, and people who you would think would know better, get up and mouth the same nonsense and defending it. And because you know why? Because they believe more in the party than God, and anything that they believe that anything comes from the mouth of the prime minister, you must find it between Genesis and Revelation. It has to be somewhere inside there, and so everything that she says is true. But when you look at the laws of Barbados, it is something completely different. Precisely when she said, if she were in another place, she would say, case closed. But she is not the body to say that. Even if it was at another place, because that would be the DPP would determine there's no case, or a magistrate would throw it out, or a judge would throw it out. It ain't got nothing to do with her. What she should have done is to say, well, look, you are accused, or you have brought the cabinet into disrepute. So we can relieve you of your portfolio until your name is cleared. That is what happens in a democracy. But in Barbados, which only parodies a democracy, the prime minister will get up at a press conference and talk rubbish, and people say, "Oh, prime minister case closed," because they don't know any better. You're not educating the people. You want idiots. Politicians want idiots. They don't want anybody to know what's going on and understand things, who can challenge them. They want mindless people who will walk behind them and shout in party colors. And it's embarrassing to think that BARROW provided free education, and a lot of our people have not benefited from it. Mind you, they went to school, but they very well could not have gone to school, and they would have been in the same position because they would still be following the politicians mindlessly without thinking for themselves. And education teaches you to think for yourself, and a lot of Bajans are not. And
Yeah.
I'm talking about even people in high positions. They just see it as my party. Now
Well,
I do not, even when I was in a political party, I did not follow that party blindly because I was one of the people to tell them that you're wrong. And that's why I was not loved particularly by them, because I would say that you're talking that's nonsense. I remember, I'll give you an example of something. I was on the National Council. The Prime Minister, he was not a member of the National Council. He was, except that he was an MP and he could attend. He comes into the National Council and people get up, stand up and applauding. And I'm the only body sitting down. And supposed to be Prime Minister coming. I say he's not the Prime Minister in here. I said I'm an assistant secretary. I'm sitting there to him. He should get up and clap. But they going up, and people get vexed with me for that because you want to get up and cheer the Prime Minister. They don't know that this is how it works. You should get up when the chairman comes before. If you're going to do that, when the chairman comes in, you should stand. And when he sits, then you sit. He was not the chairman. But people, they worship. And I think this is probably why they're so successful. The Barbados Labour Party is so successful because they have a lot of mindless people who follow them without thinking for themselves. When you look at the two major parties in Barbados, the problem comes with the Democratic Labour Party is that the Democratic Labour Party people think for themselves too, you know that, and they overthink things. Sometimes, you know, they, like for instance, the Barbados Labour Party put up a candidate. That candidate could be a dog with a bad leg, and the Barbados Labour Party people will vote for it because it is their candidate. And that's what happened in the last election. Now with the Dems, if the Dems put forward a bad candidate, the people who support the Democratic Party come for them. And that is the downfall that the Democratic Labour Party people have, you know. They don't like voter, so they make out and vote. And we had an election with 41% of the electorate voting. Because, and mind you, the Barbados Labour Party will turn their numbers though. Because don't care what you bring out there. You could bring an illiterate person. Oh yes, sorry, they did that, and he got elected. But so because they are so good at this mind control thing, and to control their minions, they remain in office. I don't want the Dems to do that. I want them to understand what the Barbados Labour Party is doing and what they have done, and to counter it. Let people and show them up, but they're not showing them up. They're
That's the sad part of it. That's the sad part of it. But I know that Dr. Ferdinand, you have done some research. Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Dr. Ferdinand has done some research on the ID, and we want to go into that discussion now, Dr. Ferdinand, because in 9 days there are people, Mr. Franklin, in this country that are going to be treated as though they're not citizens in Barbados or as second-class citizens. And we need to be able to get to the bottom of this and ask some serious questions of our leaders. So I'm going to ask Mr. Dr. Ferdinand to just share with us your research now, sir.
Yeah, let me. I'll just try to pull it up here. I hope I can follow the instructions that you gave me.
Yes,
I'm
go
just
ahead,
trying to
and
see.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just let me see if it's It's let me just share this first clip with you, so that you can hear, and I just need to know that you're hearing it. All right.
We're undergoing a soft coup, and the idea is to create a whole new set of laws and ignore the existing human rights laws and other laws under the pretext of pandemic preparedness and the biosecurity agenda. The WHO is developing through all its nations, but with the WHO directorate in the United States in charge, pandemic treaty and amendments to the existing international health regulations that will remove the human rights protections currently embedded in the IHRs, will enforce surveillance, censorship, get rid of freedom of speech, require governments to censor and only push a single narrative. Also, we will be.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard it all right.
I mean, what I just heard is insanity. I mean, it's being told to us clearly. She talks about censorship. She talks about control. And one of the easiest ways President Trudeau showed us was through controlling people's finances. Now, the Central Bank of Barbados controls all of our financial matters in the country. A few weeks ago, the Bank of Nova Scotia attempted to implement a charge for online transactions. The central bank came in and told them they can't do it. They cannot do it. I think you, Caswell, had the situation with something to do with the government and the payment of salaries or something like that to what was it again? And the government called for it to be rescinded from their accounts.
Yes, that was a couple of years ago when the nurses strike. The salaries were paid and the government tell the banks to send it back, and they did.
Right. Now, we are operating under a guise that we are of the opinion that the banks cannot do that type of thing. It's an illegal act and we can take legal action against them. But in truth and in fact, the Central Bank of Barbados controls the banks, and they have all the information where the banks are concerned with every account in this country. Now, I've confirmed that with a number of bankers. This is not something I'm saying. I'm not a financial person, but I speak with people with regards to it, because at the end of the day, the intent of the digital ID is to, and mind you, just let me say that the technology behind this digital ID, this TRIDENT ID, is great technology. We are not going to debate the technology. The whole aspect of being able to have things operating in one space for a citizen is a great idea. But what we have happening is that through the central bank digital currency, you are centralizing the operations of finance in the country down to the ordinary man in the street. I cannot track what you do with your cash. If you left your office now, Caswell, and went out and bought Chafet with cash, I couldn't tell you that you did that. But if you use your credit card or debit card, I can track your transaction. Okay? Now, if the currency that we're going to be using is now going to be a digital currency, it means that every single time you carry out any kind of purchase, the government knows exactly what you bought, where you bought it, how much you spent. And so in the time of what this woman is speaking about, where you have a pandemic, which we saw happen during the previous pandemic, people could not leave their homes. You had to go by name, not by name, by alphabetical order to the supermarket. All of these were things that the government imposed upon its people, and not just here. Okay, it imposed it against the people's will, against their wishes, and threatened the people with legal action and locking you up if you dared to violate it. Now, we have discovered subsequently that all of this was wickedness, all of it was a lie. We know for a fact now what happened during this pandemic. All right, so when you play a clip like this and you hear this woman speaking, she is the representative of the World Health Organization, and she's speaking of the whole aspect of biometrics. She's speaking of the whole aspect of control. She's speaking of the whole aspect of doing away with freedoms. Have you listened to her? And this is why I keep saying none of this stuff we are beginning to see happen in Barbados is homegrown. It is all international and global, and we are being forced into complying with it. I want to try and finish it. Well, not finish the whole thing, but let's listen a little bit more.
Subject, if they can make this work, to vaccines developed in 100 days, which the organization CEPI is planning to do. And one of the people who founded CEPI was Jeremy Farrar, who is now the chief scientist at the WHO, to bring this forward. Other things that the amendments do is to bind the states so they're no longer recommendations, but enforceable edicts. Provide a liability shield, get rid of intellectual property rights, move supplies from one country. We're undergoing a soft coup. And the idea is...
We are undergoing a soft coup. That's what she just said. We are undergoing. This is being promoted by the World Health Organization, together with the World Economic Forum, together with the United Nations. These ideas are not homegrown. And that is why I'm simply saying Barbadians have to ask our government, what is the full extent of the ID card? What is your intention? We hear all of this going on overseas. I appreciate the fact that it may not necessarily translate into what will happen here, but the government needs to tell us what will happen here and how that ID card will be used effectively by government if you Oppose them. This is happening in India already, and there's no pandemic. People in India are being sanctioned, and I went to extreme lengths to read from a paper prepared from within the World Economic Forum that I outlined the risks, the significant risks of marginalization, penalization, and persecution of people in a country. Now, if you trust the government, you can get the card, you can pin it, you can do whatever you like. But do you trust the government? And that really is the question. I
Let me
see
turn on my
Imar has joined us, and we want to
yeah.
welcome him. We don't want him to come into the room and we not welcome this young future Barbadian leader. So, Kimar, welcome to the Marcia Week show. It is always an honor and a pleasure and a joy to have you with us. And as a slightly older person, I'm speaking of myself, of course, as a slightly older person, your mic is muted, and that's probably no, actually, it's not muted, but you said something, but we didn't hear. That's probably a good thing. Um, as a slightly older person, I am happy to learn from you with regards to a number of things. I know you are very informed, you're very up to date with what's happening in our country. So we welcome you to this show, and I'm going to invite you to greet the people.
Good night to everyone. Good night,
Good night.
Marcia, Caswell, Pastor Ferdinand, and good night to the members of the loyal opposition and all of the viewers tonight. I'm happy to be here. I'm not here necessarily at home. I had some rain, no terrible accident on the road. So I just wanted
Oh,
to
really?
give so turning. So I just wanted to give my persons who were injured in the crash.
Yeah, we can't hear.
It's
Yeah,
cutting in and out. You're cutting in and out.
yeah.
Yeah. Any better
There
now?
is a rain.
Yeah. Any better
Is
now?
it is it raining by you?
Yeah, rain, rain, rain.
Really? It hasn't got down here yet. Okay. All right.
A minute or two. But yeah, right. So the terrible accident on Hollister turning, the road was
Really?
blocked. Yeah. So just wanted to give some praise to the persons who were injured tonight.
Wow.
So I just just had to stop right there and lend my assistance. So I missed most of the show, but you know, in times of life and death, you gotta make sacrifices. But nevertheless, you're here tonight. And like I said, just wanted to give my love and support to the persons and hope that uh, get well very soon. I noticed that the hospital are not the best. So I really, really wish them all the best in terms of recovery.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I had a really good program yesterday. Really enjoyed seeing everyone down there. We had a packed place. Um, Excellent presentation for the young people, Don, Thierry, Timon, Jonathan. Yeah. So congrats to you again, Marcel, for putting such a stellar play. Thank you for your vision and wisdom in these times. Soldiers, people are very few, as you can be counted. And like I said to you, the time that you were doing the one-man protest against Kim McConney, you will not stand alone. Even if
I,
you have two men, I can make sure that I am one of them.
I know that. I know that. And guess what? It's not about me, guys. It's everybody. We all need. That's why we support each other. On this show, we support. Last night I was sitting down, and Lumumba was on side one side, Bongo on one side. You know, those guys are always there. You guys, and we really support each other, and we should. You know, it's not about any one person, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Uh, I join you all guys. We're discussing the central bank digital currencies, digital IDs. Ironically, the Bank of London in England has reportedly rejected central bank digital currencies. They've already rejected it, like in England. But Barbados, we want to go ahead with it. We actually set up the infrastructure for a central bank digital currency in Barbados. The ambassador, Gabriel Abed, who was the same person involved in the metaverse and creating the digital embassy for Barbados, being the first to create an embassy in the metaverse. Right? He was appointed as the first ambassador to the UAE. I believe it was so. And we had a company set up called Bit, and the former CEO of that company was Senator Ron Adams. So party senator, he did all the infrastructure. Bit did all of the infrastructure for setting up uh what they call M Money, where they were trying to encourage merchants in Barbados to trade on this digital currency platform. And then Bit set up the regional infrastructure for the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank for them to have uh, a digital dollar. I thought about this in alternate views as well. The
Yes.
infrastructure for the digital dollar. So Barbados has been out front in terms of encouraging itself and other countries in the Caribbean to set up this digital infrastructure to create this central bank digital currency. So the digital ID is the first part of central bank digital currency, because to trade the central bank digital currency, you got to have a digital ID,
Hmm.
right? And eventually they're going to try to phase out currency. And you heard Kurt Humphrey saying that they were no longer going to pay pensioners by check, but by bank account now, right? Part of it. So all of the government services, uh, they're going to say, well, we no longer accept cash, or we no longer accept check. We only accept digital IDs, digital currency. So you're going to have to pay all of the government services with the digital central bank digital currency. Even if you want to buy some mangoes or apples, grapes from the hawker in Bridgetown, they want you to pay in digital currency, right? But again, England has refused this thing. Any other countries across the world have refused central bank because it is called command economy. It's part of a command economy. Command economies are North Korea, China, where the state controls all commerce. There's no such thing as a private sector. There's no such thing as really private property and private wealth. All wealth in those command economies belong to the state, right? So what this is doing in terms of setting up this infrastructure, right? It's saying to the outside world. Because remember when the government went to Congress and told the congressman about digital, they were like, what is that? Digital, we have no idea what's the digital ID. And that's America, right? Industrial countries in the world. Not even they want it, right? So what Ursula van, well, I can't even get it pronounced, the head of the European Commission, right? She is speaking about is they're part of the World Economic Forum. We met the last couple of days in Davos, Geneva, right? Barbados, I was to say the Prime Minister, now appointed the former ambassador, was based in Geneva, Switzerland, as the Minister of Economic Affairs in the Senate, right? And he was all over Europe doing this, doing. He actually opened a lot, or he actually was the ambassador, not just to Geneva, but so many other European countries under one umbrella, right? So our most recent Minister of Economic Affairs, being the former ambassador to Geneva, made all the different connections. He would have made he did what he had to do. I know he's in the Senate of Barbados as the Minister of Economic. We have never had of finance from the Senate. Eh, We had ministers who were ministers of finance, usually being the prime minister, right? The prime minister, you had like Richie Haynes, and you had Chris Sinclair, right? But the minister of finance in Barbados is usually prime minister, right? But now, in a complete change of political culture, our prime minister took the man straight from Davos, right?
Wow.
Put him in the Senate of Barbados and made him Minister of Economy of Barbados.
And he's in the Senate. You see, so they have a plan. Wow. Mm.
But Kimara, that is talent too, because the Senate does not discuss money bills, because the Senate has no authority to deal with money. So when you ask a question of him, no, if somebody in the House asks a question of the minister, then somebody in the House has to answer it for him.
So what
It-
is he then? Is he a figurehead? I don't understand. What's his purpose? Because that's what I'm trying to understand here. He's in the Senate. What's his purpose?
His purpose is to do the prime minister's bidding, what the prime minister wants. That's what all they do, all of them. Because if you see what's going on around this place, do you see any ministers coming out and acting independently or without the prime minister? Because she ain't here and we can do our jobs? No, they wait till she comes back. So unfortunately, Barbados is basically a one man show, and you got a lot of puppets hanging on, and that's all it is. We right now as it stands, we got one person in power in Barbados, and she could take them and put them all over the place. And you don't. And the thing is, you don't even have to have any experience to be a minister. Anything.
Yeah.
Even I'll tell some, and people are going to be surprised when I say this. Even the attorney general does not have to be a lawyer, because there's no provision in the constitution that says otherwise. All qualification that you need to be a minister is that you're a member of the House or a member of the Senate. That is all. Mind
Well,
you,
well, well,
all the other
well, Caswell,
all
tell that to people who are saying that they want people with degrees to be candidates, and you got to bring police certificate of character, and all, you got to bring your mother, grandfather, and everybody's will to, to have qualifications to become a candidate. I want you to repeat that again for all persons who are interested in politics. That the only certificate you need to be a politician in Barbados is a birth certificate.
and right now, as it stands, since they amend the constitution, they don't even have a Barbados birth certificate. So you know, it might be a life certificate. That's all you might need, because once you're a citizen of Barbados, no, you can be, and a citizen of Barbados does not mean that you have to be born here. All right, so, and if you are a member of the House or a member of the Senate, you can be a minister, and anybody can be a member of the House. Both between 21 years, that's the qualification. That's all. That's all you need. You don't need any fantastic qualifications. And the big joke is that we've had people with qualifications and they still can't get the work done.
Yeah, Kimar, um, were you finished your point about this senator that is now the Minister of Economic Affairs in
Right,
yeah.
right. So also the senator in question, he was also a director general on the International Labour Organization, or the ILO. And the ILO is basically, and Caswell could, you know, explain this better than me. The International Labour Organization really hands down standards. What is the standard for labor practices, the new benchmarks, XYZ. So the new standards for labor, according to the international world that have been set, our current Minister of Economic Affairs, he was there, he was the Director General. Right? So if you understand the public service in terms of labor, how it functions, and then you combine that with the economy, because basically Barbados is driven by jobs, or most economic activity in Barbados is driven by jobs, particularly the public service, being the biggest employer in Barbados. Right? So when you tie the two of those, given the fact that we are in the IMF program as well, that is what you're saying. All of the changes of labor contract, the terms of labor in the public service, right? Going forward, they're definitely going to see high level civil servants on contracts, right? So all of these standards that are handed down from the ILO are given, and our current Minister of Economic Development was a Director General on there. You need to watch these creeping infractions, right? Because you're going to start to see all of the labor standards in Barbados change through the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Finance.
Wow,
Right?
so we need to pay attention to this guy, this minister. Wow, I tell you, I am just shaking my head. I am hoping my fellow Barbadians are watching what is going on and getting ready. Put on your seatbelt. Things are about to change very quickly in this country. Himar, I want us to discuss this before we go off here because it's bothering me, all of us. I like Himar to hear his point on it since he came on last. Um, exactly what do we see happening after January 31st? The Prime
Well,
Minister has said that the IDs must be the pinning. Let me use her words so that I don't put words in her mouth. The Prime Minister says that IDs must be that pinning would be needed, and we have the article and the date of the article. We have that. That's a fact. So let's work with that. That's a fact, unless the reporters were lying on her. That the IDs, I don't care what nobody has said because it's her word. That word runs this thing. We all know that. And she says that the pinning of the IDs will be needed. What does that mean after January 31st to you, Kimar, a citizen of Barbados?
right, don't mean nothing to me because I ain't paying no ID. Can't know a digital ID. So pinning don't mean nothing to me. As I'm not
But she
going and
said but when it was asked of Mr. The man on brass tacks, what he said, we have the video here.
Alice.
Mr. Ellis,
Alice.
he said, yeah, Ellis, he said that there would be some services that we would not receive, and the Prime Minister alluded to that in her statement. Well, put out by the Nation newspaper. So I am saying the person who is concerned. I know you're not concerned, but the average citizen of Barbados, what are they? That's a question to the three of us, to every three of you here. What do they do when January 31 comes around, when it's the 1st of February? What is supposed to happen to those people? Is that clear to Barbadians?
well, say that no legislation or no pass legislation can trump your constitutional rights. Right? There's no piece of legislation that can trump your constitutional rights. If
You're
you do it,
saying there's no peace because you're breaking up a little. So I want to make sure because this is the crux of the matter right here. You're saying that there's no piece of legislation that can what?
trump your constitutional rights.
Uh-huh.
Right? You are given detailed rights based off the Constitution of Barbados. Right? And no bill passed in the House of Parliament can take precedent over that. Right? So the government can be taken to court and they will lose if they try to force this on Barbadians. Right?
Just let me jump in here a little bit because there are some pieces of legislation that can trump existing constitutional rights, and there's our constitutional amendments. And the government has to have 20 seats, 20 votes in the House to do so. They got 30. So any constitutional right that we have becomes moot now if the government chooses to get rid of it. So far, they have not done so because in order for a bill to amend the Constitution, it has to say that the bill purports to amend the Constitution. The bill has to say that when it begins. So you can pass a piece of legislation with just a one vote majority, it becomes law. But if it infringes on the Constitution, or then it has to have a 2/3 majority. And you don't just every act now that's passed, even though all of them vote for it, does not amend the Constitution or does not have that unless the bill itself says so. So if they said that this subject to Section 49 is subject to Section 49 of this Constitution, this act amends the Constitution, then that's when they call your name. They say Mr. Smith, Mr. Jones, Mr. whoever else in the House, and you would say yes, no, or whatever. And then when they tally them up and they have 20, then it has to go to the Senate. The Senate has 21 seats. They need 14 votes. And that is when they need some person from the independent people, but the government has bought them off. She has bought off some of them. She's given contracts to a law firm with one of the senators work. So I've actually gone to a meeting to represent somebody and see this people from this law firm that the senator is a partner in opposing me working for the government.
So, Mr. Franklin, this I hate to cut you off here on this here, but this is very. We need to have a show really looking at this because we're 9 days away, and we are here to speak up on behalf of the people of Barbados. We are the opposition, and we have to have something to be able, like what we're doing here tonight. So you're telling me that legally. There is in essence, then practically there is no recourse to the people of Barbados with this issue.
Not if the government says that the bill amends the Constitution and pass it to that effect, because it then becomes part of the Constitution. That they can make it part of the Constitution. That is why it is so dangerous to give people more than 20 seats, because when you give a party more than 20 seats in the House, you have given over all your rights, so even though you are saying, oh, the Constitution says this, turn wrong and say, well, okay, we'll change the Constitution again. And these people have amended the Constitution more times than any other administration in the history of Barbados since independence, because every so often, you remember one of the first things they did was to amend the Constitution so K. McConney and Rawdon Adams could become senators because they did not qualify.
Barbados, man.
You see, those were the Prime Minister's friends, and the Prime Minister wanted them in the Senate. And she named them as senators and then said, oops, because somebody could draw their attention, they don't qualify. So they appointed two idiots. For senators for one day.
Well, I'm going to bring it because there's a couple minutes, and we kind of we need to bring it. I'm deliberately doing it to bring it back to this issue here. So we got the point that because the bill will be amended and become
No,
part of
no, they
the
can.
constitution,
It doesn't say so no, but they can do that. They
they can
have the
do that.
they have the power to do so, and that is
Yes.
what is scary. And while I'm on it, I watched a video from the European Union saying they want to implement theirs by 2030. Barbados want to do this next week. You know what I mean? What is the mad rush for Barbados? What does the Prime Minister think she's going to gain by want to be the first in the world to disadvantage their people? That's what she's going to be proud of. Europe want to do it
But
by 2030.
but I don't think she's going to be the first. I think it's already implemented in some of the countries as well.
Well, the first in
So
the Caribbean
first in
region.
the
Down here.
Caribbean,
So
first
so
in the
so
Caribbean.
That is not something to be proud of. That's like saying I was the first rapist in Barbados. And that's nothing to be proud of.
let's so Reverend, what kind have you thought about what kind of services that both her and Mr. Ellis could be alluding to, because nothing has been, as far as I know, nothing has been said to the people of Barbados, gentlemen, about what it is that we would not be able to have access to if we do not sign. But they're alluding to services. So what has that crossed your mind, and what is it that
Yeah.
Barbadians are going to do after January 31st?
Well, of course, the Prime Minister has made it clear that the next service that will be aligned to be brought onto the Trident ID is the national insurance. I think Caswell would agree that that is a major component, given considering that when people are ill, their salaries are paid, or portions of their salaries are paid through national insurance. Is that
So
not
let's
correct,
break
Caswell?
this down. Are we saying that those Barbadians who have not pinned their ID or accepted the Trident ID, there is a possibility that they would not receive their NIS payments?
There's a possibility they will be disenfranchised. That is what the World Economic Forum warned. That was one of the specific things that the World Economic Forum warned about: disenfranchisement. They warned about persecution, and they warned about the whole aspect of discrimination, that the cards can be used, the digital ID can be used in this matter. But you see, what you're saying here, Marcia, is that while the Prime Minister is saying that she is not going to be making it mandatory, if you cannot access services unless you have it and unless you pin it, depending on what the services are, it means that you are forcing them in a very nice way to do it, whether they like it or not.
No, you
So
mean
maybe you're
it is mandatory by another name.
correct.
Because
Maybe
if I'm an old guy who goes to my pension at the post office, now they want to stop all of that. Stop the post office from collecting money and paying it to people. But some old people have difficulty handling the technology. I know it. Well, I am not old and I have problems with the technology. Me and the bank had some problems for 3 years. I went to pay my credit cards and the thing starts spinning all the time. I can't get it stop spinning, so I hit it again. Next thing, blip, blip, and I paid twice. I told him it was a mistake. One happened at 11:55 and 12 seconds, and another happened at 11:55 and 13 seconds. I said, that has to be a mistake. I'm going to pay 2 cents of money, the same amount of money wanted. And they refused. They pay back my money. So, okay, this is what we can do. If you don't pay me back my money, I am not paying you again. So we had it for 3 years. I wouldn't pay them.
So we're saying that thanks. Are we saying that the NIS is one service, is one area that we're based on just what we see in the
That's
media.
that's where they're going to start.
They're going to start
that's
there.
the first place that she
Let's
said.
go through a scenario. Let's take the people through a possible scenario, because we're trying here, Kimar, to help the people. and for them to understand what is really happening and the possibilities. So, are we saying that all the services, then you talk about health services, you're not going to be
All
able
the
to
public,
access?
all the public services, health service, whatever is publicly
Right.
offered by government.
Transport board.
Yeah,
The spoke
transport
specifically
board.
the transport board.
Yeah,
They spoke, so they spoke to NIS and they
Okay.
spoke to Transport Board. So those two
yeah.
services, for sure, that if we're following what they're saying, that those that do not, so children, then let's break it down. Kimar. So children who did not take the who did not take the Trident ID or did not pin the ID would not be able to ride on the buses to school for free.
Children are not supposed to have any digital ID, right? Yeah,
But I thought that children were going to take the ID. I probably am
no,
wrong. I heard people
you,
saying that they took their children.
but you
Yeah,
not,
I think the digital ID is going to be mandatory, Kimar,
but but
for
but
even children.
but okay. What do children do? What can a child do with the digital? The digital ID is in the possession of the parent, right? It has on the child's name, the parent's name, height, date of birth, XYZ, right? So you're saying to me that a child has to go and pin an ID card to do what?
Mr. Franklin, I know Mr. Franklin is checking to find out right there. And I'm being a little militant about this conversation tonight, gentlemen, because
That's
I
okay.
find this is the crux of the matter here. This is the Mr. Franklin. Can you find out if children are those under 18 are doing this digital ID as well? Because
Well,
we need to break it down to the parents of what is going to happen on February 1st. Go ahead, Mr. Franklin.
Section 6 of the Barbados Identity Management Act says
Mhm.
registration of a minor. Section 6.1. The mother or father of a minor who is born in Barbados or any other person authorized to register that minor shall, within 45 days of the birth of that minor, register the minor with the chief registering officer. Where, so the minors have to register under the act. And if you fail to
Are
do
we?
so,
Uh-huh.
there's a penalty.
Of what?
It says a person who is required to register a minor in accordance with this section and who fails to do so shall pay a penalty of $100 as well as any fee which may be required. So they're not telling you what that fee is. Again, that would be illegal because if there's a penalty, they got to put it in law.
Well, I think one of the misleading things that we might be, I don't let me say misleading, because when you speak of children traveling on the bus, Marcy, I think we are talking about secondary school children at that level, and
No,
they have to have their,
the primary school children travel on the bus too.
yeah, but I don't know that to the volume. Anyhow, it doesn't matter the volume. I think they have to have an ID. And based on the information that we've received, if I've only heard of the senior citizens being required to pin the ID, I have not heard of anybody else being required to pin the ID to travel on the transport board
Right.
bus. I
No,
haven't
right.
heard
We
that.
know that, Reverend. We know that, Reverend. But
Right?
here's the thing. What we're doing with this conversation, we need to push the government to let us, because we are making a lot of assumptions because
We
they
are
haven't told
speculating
us.
here. Precisely, the
They
government has
haven't
not
told us.
outlined
And so
clearly.
if they are
Yeah.
saying that the senior citizens will have to pin to travel on the transport board, we now as educated people, we are gonna have to infer that, okay, well, if other who are the other people that have to travel on the transport board and would normally use an ID? Are they not going to require? We don't know because they're not telling us.
Marcia,
Am I wrong? I don't know, but
it is sinister because the act is requiring you to register to vote as a minor because It says here the chief registrant officer has the meaning assigned to it by Section 2 of the Representation of the People Act, Cap 12. This is the act that set up elections. So you have to register your child from within 45 days of its birth to, to, um, to be in that system. So apparently what will happen, you will be registered, but you won't be able to vote until you reach 18. But then so I don't know at which point you will have to pin the card, how old that child is, but you see, nobody tells you anything. And they just put these laws in place. They don't explain them. They don't put regulations in place so that you to fully explain
Yeah.
the act. Nothing.
Right. Someone is
So
saying here, and I heard a man said it as well, that their child had to get a digital ID.
But
These are things that we need to understand. What I could get the Trident ID. This one said they have a newborn grand, and the person had. I think she's saying have to register digital to mean that.
you have to
Um,
you have to register.
yeah, but
The part, but the penny that I don't understand.
guys, I wanted to say something here, right? Let's go to childbirth, right? When a child is birthed at the QH, right? And you are supposed to register that child. You're supposed to register that child not with EBC, but you're supposed to go to register that child at the Supreme Court, right? But your documents will be lodged at the Supreme Court, and then they will produce what you call a birth certificate for that child, not an ID, right? You then turn around and you take that birth certificate, right, through another process. And then when you register the birth certificate, that is when an ID is produced, right? A minor's ID that don't even have on a picture, anything like that, right? Not an ID. You are a Barbadian from time you register at the Supreme Court, proving that your place of birth was not just the QH, but all over anywhere in Barbados. And when that birth certificate is produced, you can then take that birth certificate anywhere and do business in the country, right? So now you're saying to us that even though I go and register for a birth certificate, that I then have to go and get a national ID to be considered a Barbadian. You cannot do that because you cannot step over the Supreme Court of the country.
It is not really the Supreme Court; it's the registration department,
Right.
which actually for and it's the registrar of the Supreme Court is also the registrar of at the registration department, because all documents, all official documents, birth certificates and that stuff have to be registered there. There's a place, is a public place where a registry is a place where public documents are kept. So so I can really, as the law is now, I should be able to go to the registration department and say I want a birth certificate for Kimar Stewart. It's all you're doing really is exercising your right. If you file a document in court, put me in court and put your pleadings, somebody could go and pay the appropriate fees to get those documents. That's what the law is, because the registry has public documents. Only if and only if a court says that we not going that these documents will not be made public, then thing. But
yeah.
registration department, that's what it's all about. You have to go to the registration department to, to register that child, and that child becomes a citizen of Barbados the day the doctor spanks it.
That
You
is
don't need you
registered.
don't you ain't gonna go and register from the day you stick your head out and have you are a Barbadian.
Yeah.
Once you're done in Barbados and or in Barbados airspace or territorial waters, you
Yeah.
are a citizen of Barbados, except where your parents are diplomats. If your father's the ambassador or you're the ambassador, you had a child. So that's why you don't have ambassadors in your own country.
Right.
That's why.
But thanks, Caswell. I want to say something here because this is where the issue is, Barbadians. Listen, let's think about it. Adrian Hines is saying he went on the website and it says the pinning of the card is optional. The thing though, Adrian, let's apply some thinking to this, and this is where they are everything becomes a little muddy. If they're telling us that the card is optional, however, you have heard me read on this program the article where the PM is saying the pinning of the cards is needed. You heard the moderator saying, yes, there are some services that you're going to not be able to access. The people who are saying that I don't want the card and I'm not interested in pinning the card, those people are going to want to know. So if it is optional, then why are you telling me that the pinning is needed? You're the prime minister of the country and you're telling me the pinning is needed, but then the website is saying it's optional. Is that where we're at in your mind, Reverend, at this point? You're muted.
That's the problem that we're having, Marcia. And it really is critical for the government to come out and spell out what is going to be the position on February the 1st. You mentioned that at this point in time, we are being purely speculative. We are saying it could be this, we are saying it could be that, but we really don't know. And I mean, I felt that from not even from the beginning of this year, from last year, when it was indicated that we would have to get the ID card by the 31st of January, certainly the government should be in the position to place in all of the media locations in Barbados Nation, Barbados Today, over the radio, all the rest of it. The outline is something that's going to be totally new to Barbadians. Otherwise, I go collect my ID card and it's just going to serve as my current ID card serves. As a matter of fact, Marcia, a lot of the confirmation I do for myself, I do with my driver's license. I hardly use my ID card. The current one is what I'm speaking about. Now, does it mean that if I go to the hospital or if I go to the clinic, I cannot use my driver's license as a form of identification because my driver's license has on my national ID number
But
and it has on my picture.
stick up in there, Reverend. Caswell has been reading to us, and I'm a little militant, I know, tonight, because this is so crucial, Kimar, to the people of Barbados. Caswell has been reading to us from I keep mixing up the name, it's the Barbados Identity Act?
Identity Management Act.
Right, BIMA. Identity, I keep forgetting the management part of it, right? And a lot of what we are asking about tonight, he read to us about the children, but you still hear people saying what they are saying. They're not focusing on what Caswell is reading. That's the other thing. We got to or go and find it for yourself and read it. And it will tell you the section there about children and what exactly this act. I know what you have been doing since you were a little girl or a little boy. You didn't get an ID until 18 or 15 years old. Is there something new? Go and read the act to know what is going to happen.
Actually, some of my grandchildren got their IDs when as children. They had to. I mean, they went in. The parents took them in, and they got their IDs.
Yeah, but generally though, a lot of my
Yeah,
children they just had the little card and they got a photo ID when they got older. That's what we normally do in Barbados. But go and read, everybody on here. I know you can read. 543 of you, and you have internet. Go and Google and look up the Barbados Identity Management Act so we can have a sensible discussion, an intelligent discussion on Wednesday. This is very important to us because by February the 1st, there are things that are going to change on us in this country. And we need to know, Mr. Franklin and and Kimar and Pastor Ferdy, does it mean we need to hit the streets? Because we need to understand, am I going to be a second class citizen in this country? What is it? Why can't you come out straight and tell us about these services that you are alluding to? Why the Prime Minister need to tell us why it is needed? What do you mean by needed? You know, that's just my view on it. I know the time is
Yeah,
gone.
yeah, the time is gone, but it is incumbent upon the government to come out and be clear, because what is happening now, it shows that everything is as clear as mud. The prime minister is saying one thing, the former minister, Davis Ismail, was saying something different, and the information on the website is saying something different. We want the government to come out and say A, B, and C. Like, for instance,
Correct.
Freddie just said that he uses his ID card, his driver's license. Well, you might be able to use that until the next time you have to renew it. But when you get renew it next time, you have to have the digital ID, or you can't renew the license. You can't obtain a license unless you have it. That is
Yeah, but
section 5,
the question
section
is, does it?
510 of the same act. You know,
But
you
the
have to.
question is, does it have to be pinned for me to do that? I think the issue here with people is the matter not just of getting the card, but the aspect that we are being told it has to be pinned. And if it has to be
Because
pinned,
if it has to be paid for, instance, you're using a government service, and you're going you're going to put your money in the bank. Hey, you're going to find some way to do that. You're going to pin it. If you're going to be just sending the money out to people's accounts, how is the government going to know which account you're going to send? So I suspect that the government has to reel and come again and be forthcoming. Tell the people the truth. They are not telling you the truth right now. They're putting legislation in place, and you must obey, because our great our what do you call it, our leader uh, has made an edict, and we got to follow. But you don't have to understand why she's saying it. You just have to do it. And this is what this government has been doing all along. You're just saying things without giving people explanations. And because you think you are mightier than thou and you know best, you would treat people in this way. You are disrespecting the people of this country. The people of this country has never been so disrespected since slavery. You know, at least they had the semblance, even when we didn't have independence before Barrow's time, even before Granny Adams' time, we at least they always had the laws put in place, and they had explanatory notes, had everything inside there. These people don't care what they're doing. From the first thing I talk about this tonight, when we were saying that you pass, you have not passed an amendment to the Criminal Hospital Act, but you are employing a chief executive officer. There's no way in that act where you have a chief executive officer, but they're doing it. So they're just doing what they like. So the prime minister determines that this is the case and that we must have this digital ID. And if you would remember, it was brought before the House and passed in one day and did not tell anybody. That is a sure sign that they're sneaking something in on you that is undesirable. Because if it was desirable, they would publish it. They would let everybody know and sell and follow the normal processes of legislation through Parliament by publishing it in the official gazette. And they know they did it in one day. One day in the Senate, one day in the House. And it passed, and it put down there and wait for 2 years. And I can tell you why they pass it in that particular day. They pass it in that particular day because Monique Tate, Crystal Dritz, or Caswell Franklin were not in the Senate that day. And they pushed it up on the order paper and passed it so that it would have been gone through the House, and nobody would have had, because we were the only people that would have spoken up in any event. And they were so lucky that day that 93 of us were there, and none was there rather, and to show that they did not need the legislation to be passed urgently, because it took another 2 years before they implemented it. So if you took 2 years to implement it, why did you have to pass it in an emergency type procedure?
Yeah. But you know, Mr. Franklin, I think and Kimar and Dr. Ferdinand, we need to read it and remove the rumors and get to the facts of the matter. We need to understand it. We can't, because as I said, I've been hearing Kimar has talked about it, Dr. And Pastor Caswell, Mr. Franklin has spoken about it. And I think at this point we need to be able to. We're gonna put it. We did it. We put it up on the screen before. Kimar. It was up on the screen. We need to get the proper information out there to the people of Barbados. We have to stand up and we have to speak up for the people of Barbados when it comes to February 1st. Is this a bluff they're calling? We don't know. Somebody said nothing is going to change. I want to give everybody the homework tonight. Can I give homework?
Yeah, well, I
All
already
of
began my I already began my homework. I'm already on the tridentgovernment.bb website, reading the information there,
Yes, and
and
do they have the
we.
Barbados Identity Management Act on there?
I am not seeing the Identity Management Act on the
Yes.
Trident Gov website. I'm not seeing it there.
Yeah, I think that act and along with the site would be important. Is What do you think about that, Kimar? And do you think that that is the proper homework for everybody? Miss McLean is saying that reading the act does not offer the answers you need. Is that? Do you think that is so, Kimar?
Maxine,
What are your thoughts,
Maxine, sorry.
Right.
Kimar?
Right. Yeah, she's correct. The act is going to give you generalizations. There's not Caswell could correct me if he's looking at it. There's not a section in the act with a list of definitions as to exactly what word means what in specific, so that it's not left up to interpretation. Right. Second thing, second, it is my firm belief that we will not get the answers from the government because they've lied to us countless times over and over during this ministry. If you really want to know we need to read the contract that they give to people to sign to get the ID. And if we could read that contract, have a copy of that contract, then we would get a better understanding as to exactly what is because they can't do it without consent, right? To get that ID, you have to put your name on a paper saying, I consent, I, Marguerite, consent, and sign it. If you consent and you don't sign it, it's not a legally enforceable document. Right? So if we get that contract that they give you, then you go to register for this new ID, and we read that. That is where you will specifically understand exactly what the government is asking of you. Right? They're asking you as a living soul, as a living person, to hand over. So I said earlier that you could have Trump any right could be run over if you consent to it. So I say that if I say something or we enter into an arrangement, a contract, but the contract is fair and illegal in law, as long as you consent, as long as you give me consent, I can go ahead and do what I have to do. Right? But if you don't give consent, nothing can happen. So the ID gets you if you go in there and register and sign your name on that contract to get the digital infrastructure that they're giving to you. Because they can't force it on you, right? You have to accept. We
Yes, but
Mm.
don't live.
Kimar, what happens? You still live in the country. What does the Prime Minister mean when she says pinning will be needed? What does that mean for you who have not signed that contract? That is the question.
Pinning will be needed because you have to pay for services through the ID, right? So it's just like it's a banking portal, right?
Okay.
So they would be able to monitor your fund because this information is going to be stored on servers,
I
by the way.
understand that. So what does that do for the person who how are they going to pay? Do you understand what I'm saying? If so, you can make that decision, Kimar. But I'm saying, in a practical way, is where I'm getting at here. A
Mhm.
practical, a practical thing. Now, what happens to You didn't sign the contract. How do you continue to live in Barbados? Is that going to be possible? How do you get the services? How do you connect to what's going to happen? That's what am I
All right.
crazy here?
All
Well,
right.
it just it just
There is
means that you
there
will
is a
not be able to
schedule.
access the public
Wait, one
services.
second,
You
one person at a time.
sorry, it just means that you won't be able to access the public services free. If you want to attend to your health, you're going to have to pay a doctor. Or if you want to deal with transportation, you have to use some other transportation than the transport board. Maybe you can use them, what you call them, the minibus. Um, but I agree with that statement there. A list of questions need to be drawn up and sent to the government for answers. I agree with that. I also agree with the fact that we do need to dedicate a program for this. And if it's going to be Wednesday, we will prepare. I certainly will prepare in terms of that program.
All right. Just let me just read some things for you.
Yes,
It
go ahead,
shouldn't take too
Caswell.
long. The there is a schedule, the first schedule to the act. It says particulars and features to be displayed on the identification card. One, full name of the person. Two, date of birth. Sex. Three, four, nationality. Five, disability where applicable. Six, national identification number. Signature of the person where the person is a minor, signature of the parent or guardian of the minor is required. Eight, photograph of the holder, not applicable to minors. 9, expiry date where applicable. 10, residential status where applicable. 11, QR code and other relevant encoding for usage of relevant authority. 12, machine readable zone. And 13, digital chip. However, this is part 1. So that part 1 says what should be on the ID card itself. Now, it says here, particulars contained in the digital chip. Now, section 20 says you're going to have the chip. And now they tell you what must be on the chip of the identification card. And it says name of the person, date of birth, sex, nationality, place of birth, identification number, address, photo of facial image, type of disability, electronic signature, 11, password. That password means a PIN. So this is requiring you to PIN the card. It says it's not applicable. It is not mandatory, but it's in legislation. If it's on the card, and the card says you have to have a digital chip, and the chip
And this is
must
in
have.
this is in the legislation.
This is the first schedule, part 1 and 2 that I just read to you.
This is, and I know, but I'm repeating because I want
Yes,
Barbados to understand.
this is the legislation. So even though
Barbados
they say it is
Identity
not mandatory,
Management Act.
they put it in the legislation that you must have it.
Okay, so the Barbados Identity Management Act, I'm going to ask the person here to put it up on our website, the marciareedshow.com website, to put it up on there. But you can go and find it. We are all educated here. We all can read. I guarantee you, this is Barbados. I know that we can read, right? And so go on it, read it, read the act. We can discuss something intelligibly that we have not read, and read the go and read the website secondary, because they can put, remember, you use the website to promote what you want to promote, right? So the website should be secondary to the Barbados Identity Management Act, and find whatever is in articles on newspaper, what the Prime Minister said about it, right? Find what is said in public about it, and let us come together to have a proper discussion. Time is gone from us, but I thought that this is important. People have so many questions. There's one here, Mr. Franklin, that keeps coming up, and I know you've been saying it over and over, and it seems, but you know how it goes in school, where sometimes it doesn't always stick. People want to know whether or not we have a constitution. Can you just say it again? And I know you still have to repeat it another time. Go ahead. Just in brief, brief.
Barbados has a constitution. The constitution was passed in the Senate on the 6th of October 2021. What they didn't do is to tell you that they were passing the constitution. What they did, they repealed the old constitution and replaced it with the old constitution with a few things added onto it. So people did not know. As a matter of fact, when I was in the Senate, and people laughed at me when they said, other senators on the government side laughed at me when they said, you realize we're passing the constitution today and it's kind of avoiding nothing. People laughed at me because they only believe that they were changing from governor general to president. But section 4 or clause 4 of that legislation says that from the appointed day, the document so amended becomes the Constitution of the Supreme Law of Barbados. It is the old Constitution with a few bells and whistles on it. So we do have a Constitution. It is shameful, but they just take the old one and put it back with a few little things added on. But it is there, it is legal, and I can tell people things now. A lot of people have been saying that Barbados doesn't have a Constitution, and they can take it to court. If it doesn't have a Constitution and you take it to court, which court will vote to put itself out of work? Because if you say they have a constitution, that means the courts is establishing the constitution, so they can't go to court. The Caribbean Court of Justice, and then so after the court then rule that you don't have it, and you appeal to the Court of Appeal, you think the Court of Appeal can vote can rule that then the constitution, but then be ruling this will work. And the same thing for the Supreme Court, for the CCJ. CCJ want people to add on, they want people to take off. So that is utter rubbish. You hear people talking about it. It is rubbish. They're talking rubbish. It is foolishness. You have a constitution. There was one person who voted against it that day. That was me. Everybody else voted for it. But it was passed.
Yeah.
But they didn't tell you they were passed. Like every other, all this important piece of legislation, they didn't tell you. They just bring it to the house and pass it. And they did not say, well, from tomorrow or from the 30th of November 2021, this constitution will take effect. They didn't do that, but it's in the legislation that says so. They didn't tell nobody. They didn't make it public, but it was done in the Senate and it was done in the House.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Franklin. And it's okay. I mean, this is how it is. Because it's hard for people to accept and to believe that it is so. I think that we are going to have a meaningful discussion on Wednesday. We should spend the time. I know things might come up, and we can touch on those things really slightly. But this, we should be doing focus in on this on Wednesday, so that we are here to help our people. And so we want to make sure that we have as much information as possible. Thank you all so very much. I'm going to ask Kimar, what do you want to say to Barbadian? Any final words about this or any other issue before we close?
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify some points I made earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Said when you're born in Barbados, you're a Barbadian, which is true. And you are a living person. So you have a registration of live birth, and that comes in a green card. You get a green card, right? As you're a baby, you get a green card. You then have to take that green card to your registry, right? You have to take that green card to the court, and then you get a birth certificate, right? When you get the birth certificate, then you become a citizen of Barbados, and you have that birth certificate. So you can't take away any right that you have in a Barbadian as long as you are born here. As Kazo said, they will have to go and change the constitution and change all of the laws surround being born in Barbados as a living soul and taking that green card to the court to then have it read. They didn't speak to that at all whatsoever, right? So they are looking at court action if come the 31st of January and they don't pull this back, Jamaica all other countries. Court, the government lost, and they had to put back. So Barbados and the government of Barbados, this government, they will lose in court if come the 31st of January and they don't pull this back. And those are my partner words. And just to say thank you for the person who contributed the information to clear up the gray area.
Yes. Thank you, Kimar. Reverend,
Well, what can I say? I'm going to be preparing for Wednesday, and I agree that we need to hear from the government. But I don't see that we can continue to speculate. We need to have clarification. We need to know exactly what this ID card is going to be used for. What is its purpose? What are the benefits? What are the liabilities? What are the risks? What are the strengths? And I think it is really required of the prime. We shouldn't even have to ask for this. That's the brutal truth. We shouldn't. You're introducing something. You should be outlaying what the pros and the cons are. When I introduced a BMW vehicle to Barbados when I worked for BMW, people didn't have to come to me to ask me about it. I introduced it and laid out what the new features and da 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 were. So I really find that this is a horrible slip up on the side of the prime minister. That the majority of people in this country are asking questions. Everywhere I turn in this country, people are asking questions about this ID card. Everywhere. What does it mean? Do I have to pin it? If I pin it, what does it do? Does it give access to my personal bank account? I don't want the government in looking into my. That is the position. So the government needs to tell us what and what not the card is about.
yeah. Thank you, Pastor. And Caswell,
Yes, well, all I can tell you is Barbados needs to be vigilant. The people of Barbados needs to be vigilant because our rights are being whittled away by people who were saying that the last administration did a lot of bad things and they're going to be open and they're going to be clear, they're going to be everything else. And they are more secretive, more lawless than any other administration has been. And, you know, people say, I am voting again. I ain't going to vote. And it's the people like that that put Mayor Motley and her administration in power because you are so fed up with the system that you opt out. So when you opt out, her minions vote though. So you opted not to have a say in the running of this country, and then you know you're complaining. You should not complain because you decide whatever happens, I will live with it. I can understand if you voted and then say, you know something, I vote but my people lost. You know, I feel bad. But if you say, well, I am voting, that means that you are going to agree to whatever the government does because you give them a blank check.
yes,
And the government realizes it because 41% of the electorate voted in the last election. 59% of the people did not vote. Well, there's a good percentage that could not vote because they were sick and they had COVID, and the government was only too happy to make sure that they didn't vote. And some people who had COVID and they were barbers, they were part of the people who went to vote anyhow because they meant that people had COVID. I'm aware of this now. But them with COVID, they put you down with the down with St. Lucie. They let their COVID people come out and hope they don't get the body sick.
okay,
Okay, so we have to be vigilant. If you are not vigilant, you will suffer as we are now. And if you want to
yes,
continue to suffer, continue to ignore what's happening in this country and think that things will get better. They will not get better if you don't stand up for your rights. And one of
yes,
those rights is to don't pin the card. And if you feel that um, that you need it pinned, make sure before you pin it that it is explained. And so far they have not explained the card to you.
yeah. Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Thank you. I just want to reiterate the thank you to the opposition for the donations received so we could have had a very successful showing yesterday. The children left there very, very happy, and they might not understand everything, might not have understood everything about Mr. Barr, but they heard his name and they would have picked up something. They heard something. The teenagers were there, and the place was we had a very good number of people there, one of our better events. And we thank God for that. And thank you, Kimar, for selling the popcorn. Thank you so much. Kimar was there over that popcorn, and we made some money selling the popcorn, and I would not forget that. I'm just like that, you know. I like those kinds of things. And Mr. Franklin was there as well. Dr. Ferdinand was there. Thank you all for being there, and everybody who gave, those who gave $5 or $1. We put this on together. Nobody, no right wing organization gave us any money. The money came from the people of Barbados. That was your success last night. And I want to thank you for what you have done. All the volunteers that I can't say all the names, but you know who you are. Those who set up the popcorn machine, those who set up the screen, all the technical, the everything that you did. I don't want to call all of the names, but thank you. You know who you are, and the opposition appreciates your work. And thank you. We're going to be on, God willing, on Wednesday, and this is what we want everybody to study: the Barbados Identity Management Act. I'm going to work with Miss McLean and to start to put together some questions and some, you know, we might need to call a press conference, something, but somebody's going to tell us something. That's what I believe. Somebody's going to tell us something. Yes.
Well, well,
God bless you.
Minister Marsha Cattle, she has the responsibility for it. So we need to directly ask her, the Minister of Science and Technology and Innovation, exactly what's happening here.
Yes, we are, and we might need to call a press conference before we do the march.
And you
All
and you
right.
know you have a home for your press conference when you're ready.
Anyway.
Okay. You know you have a home for your press conference
Yes,
when
yes,
you're
we're
ready.
coming right down there at
So
Unity. I'm very
so
serious about it. We must protect the people, the bar. We are the ones in the parliament, Kimar. I know I want to finish, but I want to understand if we had people inside that parliament, they would be rolling inside in there, but we don't have it. So we are going to make the noise on the outside right here. Right, so we might need a press conference before the week is up. Because they got to tell us what's going on. All right. Okay, guys. Bye bye. God
God
bless you.
bless.
Love you all.
Have a great night, guys, and thank you, official opposition.
Yes.
Thank you
Bye
so
bye.
much. Pleasure being here. Good night.